Yes. Well, good evening. The May 9th, 2024 meeting of the Corvallis School Board is called to order at 6:35 p.m. In the interest of public health and safety for all community members, especially immunocompromised individuals and their families, the Corvallis School Board will continue to offer a virtual option for board member and district personnel participation. Additionally, public comment is available at some meetings, both in person and virtually. Information about how to provide public comment is available on the Corvallis School District website. The board agenda and packet, as well as the link to the district YouTube channel, are available on the school board page on the district website. Public meetings are live streamed on the district's YouTube channel, and a recording is posted to the same channel, typically the day after the meeting. Tonight we have Directors Finger McDonald, Hawkins, Largent, Alabdabra, and co-vice chairs Tomini and Jones, and myself in attendance. No board members are absent. And the first item on the agenda is acknowledgement of Pride Month. And we're going to take turns reading that.
Corvallis School District 509J, Acknowledgement of Pride Month. Resolution number 220501. Whereas the Corvallis School District recognizes and pays tribute to the significant contributions made in our community by LGBTQI2S+ people, and
whereas the Corvallis School District affirms that LGBTQI2S+ students, families, staff, and community members should be valued for all aspects of their identities, and whereas Pride Month grew out of efforts of the LGBTQI2S+ liberation movement in the 1970s, and
whereas the LGBTQI2S+ liberation movement is widely recognized as growing out of activist efforts at the Los Angeles Cooper Donuts, San Francisco Compton's Cafeteria, and New York Stonewall uprisings in response to violence against LGBTQI2S+ people, and whereas 1 year after the Stonewall riots, organizers launched a gay pride in 1970, which continued annually, and
whereas LGBTQIS+ people have been and continue to be targeted by acts of hate, and whereas LGBTQIS+ people have historically been criminalized and institutionalized because of openly embracing their identities, and
whereas LGBTQI2S+ people, and especially trans youth, continue to face targeted efforts that limit their ability to access healthcare, sports, and education that is identity affirming, and whereas the community-based efforts celebrating LGBTQI2S+ Pride during the 1970s evolved to what is now known as Pride Month annually in order to celebrate LGBTQI2S+ identities.
Whereas Pride Month was first proclaimed nationally in 1994, and
Whereas Oregon has yet to proclaim Pride Month at the statewide level, and
whereas Pride Month provides an opportunity to continue the district's growth in learning about the many contributions of LGBTQI2S+ people to the nation, world, and local community, and
whereas education is a necessary component for creating a more equitable and anti-racist community, nation, and the world, and whereas the Corvallis School District has made a commitment to equity and anti-racism, and
Whereas the Corvallis School District has a responsibility to honor and respect the diverse histories of our community, and whereas the Corvallis School District believes each and every student must be celebrated and appreciated for the distinct and vibrant contributions made by sharing cultures, language, ideas, beliefs, and values within a school community.
Therefore, let it be resolved by the Board of Education of the Corvallis School District does hereby proclaim June 2022, as well as each June annually, as Pride Month in the district, and strongly encourage students, families, staff, and community members to join in existing local celebrations, and encourage all schools in the district to help highlight this month in grade-appropriate ways, as well as highlight the contribution of all LGBTQ2S+ people to the local community, nation, and beyond, both historically and in current times. Adopted by the Board of Directors of School District Number 509J, Corvallis of Benton and Lynn Counties, Oregon, at its regular meeting this 5th day of May 2022.
Thank you, and just a reminder that we reread those every year as a reaffirmation from the district for the different Pride, Heritage, and History Months. And the next thing on the agenda is board member reports. Does anybody have a report? Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, I want to first of all thank Crescent Valley High School for the amazing food that they collected for the food drive. I just got to see pictures of bags and bags, and I just think it's great that they do that kind of service work and help our families. Also, I went to a couple of the fine arts nights, different schools, and I will just have to say, wow, like, I have been to those art nights before, and I'm always impressed, but this year, they went beyond, like, the work that they did and the art that they displayed, just beautiful work throughout. It's really fun. And if you haven't had a chance, just go walk through, like, Adams School. It's just amazing. And it's, the other thing that that's really impressive is the pride that the kids have in their art and just displaying it, and every time I'm in there, students like stop me and say, "Look at my art right here." And even after the night of art was really. And then I imagine Judith's going to talk too, but we got to do a lovely tour of Sheldon and really look at their communities and talk to the principal, and that was a really, really informative and delightful walk through the school.
Yeah, so Chris and I did do the tour of Sheldon, and I really appreciated learning about the new attendance sweeps and the hall community that they've instituted pretty recently. And since our last meeting, we also went to the open house at Mountain View Elementary and got to see all the wonderful changes in the bright, beautiful new space, and really appreciated their hospitality, and really loved seeing all the beautiful changes that happened to Mountain View Elementary.
Anyone else? Oh, good, Shauna.
Thank you. I've had the pleasure of attending a number of music events in the district over the last month. Band and choir and orchestra concerts at Sheldon Middle School, which were just phenomenal and amazing to see students progressing at different levels through those different programs, as well as the choir festival that was held at Corvallis High School recently. Just phenomenal work put in by students in terms of musicality and really leaning into expression through music. I also had the pleasure and privilege of participating in the MMIP, the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Peoples event that was hosted at Crescent Valley High School. I know there was an evening event as well, which I wasn't able to attend, but I hope Dr. Whitebear will be able to speak to that too. The event was just a phenomenal gathering of community to speak about something that is so critically important. Julia Bluearm played a tremendous leadership role in that event with funds from the Corvallis Public Schools Foundation and Safe Students, as well as others who were there supporting the event along with community members. So it was really a meaningful event that was very student-driven, student-led. I really appreciated Dr. Whitebear's remarks as well as her poetry that she shared that day too, and I hope she'll speak to it as well. And then the final thing I'll mention is attending the College Hill Film Festival last night, and I hope you'll get to hear from one of the students who was participating in the film festival in a little while. But this was such a beautiful and creative act of sharing, of students really expressing themselves, their stories, what's meaningful to them about their life paths, as well as in connection with school, the relationships that they have in the community, and just an incredibly heartfelt and inspiring evening. So thank you to everybody who put your hearts into that.
I keep turning it off instead of on. Okay, Sammy? Or, I thought you seen you look at me.
Sure.
You usually have a report too.
I usually do, and I think I can't add to Shauna's comments about the College Hill Film Festival. It was really phenomenal. Jasmine and many of her peers, all of her peers, really touched the hearts and the minds of me, and I'm sure many people. I was in tears, and the courage of the students is something that is really inspiring and truly inspiring for me personally. So want to highlight how phenomenal the College Hill program is in supporting the students grow, persevere, and succeed. And it is a testimony not only for the program, but for the students themselves and their families for believing in this. So Jasmine, and to your peers, thank you. Those are my board comments. I did participate also in other opportunities nationally and statewide, and happy to share them in the following report.
Teresa or Sarah? Okay. Sarah, did you have anything, or you're good? Okay. All right, I had a few things, so hold on. So the first thing I wanted to say is the CV High School MMIP 5K that Shauna brought up that they worked on. They also had a little bit of support from the Indian Education Grant Funds too for that, so the contribution of the program that Marcianne has been really helping with get that application in. And then it was pretty soggy. I walked half of it though, but yeah, I didn't do the whole thing, I'm not gonna lie. It was too soggy, but everybody else did. And the benefit concert that evening was really cool. It was a nice partnership that they had with the White Side, so Julia really went all out in helping raise awareness and involve the students with this really great opportunity with some artists from out of town, and so that was really cool to see it all come together and everybody having a good time. And then I also was able to help with the CHS Safe Club's red dress display, helping put that up for the same topic for their Wear Red Day, and it just looked really beautiful in the school. I was just really touched seeing the amount of time and effort that the students and the staff and Anna Zachariah had put into helping with that exhibit as well. And if I don't know if anybody got to check it out that's here, but it was besides the students obviously, but would recommend seeing pictures of it at least. You did? Nice, thank you. And then I did miss the film festival I was really excited to go to, and then I had a work conflict. So sorry I couldn't go to that. And then the other thing I wanted to report on, oh, there's two more things. I went to the Corvallis Public School Foundation meeting on April 24th, and that was always good, and really appreciate the partnership with the Public School Foundation and helping raise funds for the district's work to continue in the best way they can. And also we're working on the MOU with them, with CSD, so working with Ryan on that as well with their staff. And then the last thing I wanted to report on, I'm actually glad there's a lot of people here because there's some information to share with you all from this report, as well as whoever's listening, and hopefully we'll have more information later on. One of my roles with OSBA is the is the Legislative Policy Committee representative for the Caucus of Color. And so I attended the OSBA. They have their annual in-person Legislative Policy Committee meeting in April. And I also went to the OSBA board meeting the night before to check that out because I hadn't been to one in person with the board I was a guest. It was like interesting being a board person and then being like just a regular person participating in that, even though board members are regular people. You all know what I mean. I got kicked out of the room for their executive session. That's how it was different. So it was good for me. And but at the LPC meeting, they shared some really critical information about the state funding. And I really encourage you all to look at ways to be involved. I'm going to pull up I'm pulling up the slides right now. One of the things that struck me was their conversations around the amount of funding, not necessarily the dollar amount, but the percentage that comes through the state with the SSA funds and the SSF funds, which is the state school funds, and then the lottery revenues included. So in the last 4 bienniums, so the last sets of the 2 years, like with the struggle we're facing right now with the budget, one of the things that I found really striking is that the number they've been boasting about with the state is like the highest amount. Sorry, the sun's in my eyes too right now. But it's the highest amount that they have allocated for public education, but it was only actually 30.2% of the funding that the state has. And for comparison, in 2009 to 2010, it was at 39%. So that's 8.2 or 8.8% decrease of the amount of funding that is going to public education through the state. And I think that's really important for us to think about as we advocate. It was actually 34.8, so it was not quite as bad, but it's still way down compared when you add in some of the other funds into this mix. They asked some great questions of us that I'd be happy to talk with folk on my thoughts on at a later time. I don't want to take up our whole meeting talking about my answers to these questions. But they asked like why we think legislators have reduced spending on education as a portion of the general fund reserve revenues. And those are really good questions to think about. And how would we respond to legislators who ask why they should contribute more general fund dollars to SSF if higher education and early learning are also competing for those dollars? And so they had us thinking about those conversations in person. And there's a couple people online, but there was most of us were there to be able to, from different areas, to kind of talk about what's going on across the state. And so it was really good for me to think about this in our capacity here in Corvallis, what's going on and how we can advocate. If you go to osba.org, there's the LPC, the Legislative Policy Committee page, and maybe if I lean back, there we go. They have their own set of information there. There is a Advocacy 101 training that you can look at, as well as some other information. They have a section on there too that talks about how school board members can be involved. And so this is, I'm directing to the community directly to think of, if we're not doing our part too, please let us know. At least let me know personally if I'm not doing my part as a school board member with the advocacy part. And then I'm sure that other board members feel the same. But one of the things that I also did was follow up with Lori and Efren from OSBA, their legislative policy office, and asked how community members can be more involved. I've had a couple of community members email about that, and how PTAs can be involved as well. And they have a PTA statewide advocates are starting to organize through that format. And so they said the best thing for community members that want to be engaged in the state level work is to start organizing who will be involved with that for when the information's available. And then they're going to share that with me, and I'll go ahead and share that out. I know this is a little bit like tangential related to my role on the board, because it's actually through my legislative work for OSBA's Caucus of Color, but I wanted to make sure to still share that information with our community as well, since I have access to that information, and to my fellow board members as well, so they have that information. So I just wanted to say that much on that. So, and that would be my very lengthy, I usually don't have reports this long, but I really wanted to make sure that got covered this evening, especially because we have a lot of community members here, and there's also students here. If you all want to learn how to get involved, they have some great resources. And that's actually our time for board member reports, so that was perfect timing. So we have the OSBA and NSBA updates is next on the agenda.
Few moments to really share a highlights of the reports and add a couple of information since I did not include in the reports. So as a reminder, OSBA is the Oregon School Board Association, and NSBA is the National Association, and both are membership association that local and state associations are part of. And I serve as president of the OSBA and representing 10 states and territories on the NSBA. The first thing that is not on the report, written reports, every year, PTA Oregon, or Oregon PTA, they invite the presidents of OEA and OSBA to speak at the convention. And when I spoke, I shared remarks around the budget cuts that we're experiencing across the state, and the role of the PTAs and parents and community members and school board members in how to address those challenges. And the remarks were on 3 levels: the need to build and strengthen trust between board members and local community members and parents. The second is ensuring that we celebrate, emphasize the wins to the legislative body so they know what's working. And the third, which is most importantly, as we see the cuts, is to highlight the impact of the cuts as we get into the long session in 2025 and the need for coordination between education associations. So that was recently, end of April. The other remarks I have are a really brief overview of the reports. As you have seen, we extended a formal apology from the National School Board Association for being on the wrong side of history. It's decades overdue to Ruby Bridges, who was denied among many of all of her peers at the time from entering a school until Brown versus Board of Education was ruled by the Supreme Court, and years after, the NAACP and other organizations advocated for reintegrating schools. It was really a historic moment for NSBA to invite her. I had the honor to meet with her. I have a signed copy, which I'll bring next time. My tradition is to gift the signed copy to the school. This one, I'm going to keep it, and I hope to keep it in the family. But it's really, truly an honor to meet with her. Other things that I want to highlight, thank you, Lou, for highlighting the OSBA LPC committee met. The challenges around budgets are really crucially important for board members to connect with our representatives, and we're very lucky in Corvallis having regional representation and caucus representation on the LPC. Also, there had been a discussion around absenteeism, and Representative Wawin came in person and had in-person discussions with board members around how absenteeism and truancy laws have been impacting school districts and the challenges between different grade levels and also different regions across Oregon. And of course, the budget conversation. As a reminder, trainings are available for engagement, as Lou mentioned. Also, there's trainings about free speech for board members and other things that are available. And that's my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from Sammy's report? Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
So I have a few things I wanted to highlight for all of you. The first is that this is Certified Appreciation Week, so recognizing our teachers, our speech and language pathologists, mental health therapists, counselors, and nurses. This is the week. One of the ways we do that is by recognizing our staff throughout this week. As you all know, we're going through some difficult times, and so any opportunity you have to reach out and support and lift up some of our folks, we would greatly appreciate it. And also appreciation to the foundation. They help us to be able to provide. This time we did root beer floats and ice cream with some fruit in the staff rooms for everyone to enjoy. And in March, we did that with classified staff as well. And so the foundation helps us to be able to do that. So appreciation to the foundation once again for what they do and how they support us. There's another example further into my report as well. You also may have seen in the newspaper recently, Judy Story received an award. She is at CHS, and she has been the swim coach at CHS since 1977. And so she received a national award. Again, it was in the GT, so if you have a chance to go back and look at that, you should. Judy is an incredible member of our community and a great coach, and I love to watch her team swim. She really supports all students to be able to participate, and some things she's really proud of. So again, she's been recognized for this with this award. It is the National Interscholastic Swimming Coaches Association Award. It's a long name, but she's been doing it a long time, so very, very deserving. Also tonight, at some point, we're hoping to have up a couple of pieces of art from our green teams. Kathy's going to help to do that in a little bit, and they'll be on the back wall. But a couple schools to recognize in that work. The first is Adams Elementary. They have been working all year to bring in pop cans and recycling, and from that they've been able to work with the World Wildlife Foundation or World Wildlife Fund to adopt endangered animals. And seems like every time I stop by the school, they've added another endangered animal to their list, so that has been really great to see. And then at Letitia Carson, students took a number of pieces of plastic that they found and put it together in a banner as a way of reminding us about about how we take care of our planet. So again, those will be hanging at the back of the gym in just a little while. A couple of other things. Jasmine has been recognized a couple times already for the College Hill Film Festival. It was an honor to be able to attend last night, and the focus this year was from my point of view, so the point of view of the students, and they covered everything from their point of view through the pandemic, through being in the construction program, to Jasmine sharing her story of the successes she's had and also the challenges she's faced. And at the end of her section, there was not a dry eye in the house, so thank you, Jasmine, for doing that and sharing your story. Tomorrow, you'll get a link from Kim, which will have the YouTube video, so you'll be able to watch those movies if you weren't able to make it last night. This is also the time of year when we begin to think about graduations, and so make sure that if you don't have these in your calendar, you get them in your calendar. The dual language immersion graduation is on the 31st of May at 5:30. Wings is on June 5th, 2:30 to 4. College Hill High School, you can't miss that one, is 7 to 9 on Thursday, June 6th. And the following night is both CHS and Crescent Valley. So again, it's the time of year where we're supporting and celebrating all the work that has happened. And be sure to hit as many of those as you can. Again, back to the foundation, we are planning a summer school or summer programs this summer. And really, again, I want to attribute that to the foundation and their financial support to make that happen. As you know, there were some state funds that went towards summer school across the state, but there was a prioritization that was set, and we didn't meet that prioritization. And so the only way we are able to do this is with the support of the foundation and the braiding of some funds that we have around high school success. And so the programs that we're going to have this year will have credit recovery for students, high school students, and there'll be twice as many seats this year as last year. Also a K-5 literacy program through our 21st Century Learning Grant. We will have transition math camps, so 5th to 6th and 8th to 9th for students. And then also there were some specific grant requests that came through the foundation that they were able to fund as well. So there will be programs throughout the summer, and again, there'll be opportunities that we'll share with you to go and visit some of those because again, they are fun and they're different than the traditional school year, and definitely worth coming and being a part of. And you might even walk out with a tie-dyed shirt, who knows. And then another thing is that tonight is the final night for our student reps for this year. So it doesn't feel like very long ago we were sitting in the back room having pizza and talking about your roles. And now here we are at the end of the school year. So I have a certificate for each one of you. And if you could come over here with me, I want to make sure we get a picture of us all together. And thanks again for continuing to contribute this year and participate. I had a chance to go yesterday to CHS to talk to Liam. I had the opportunity yesterday to go to CHS to talk to Liam and Kim Patton and Matt Boring about parking. So again, there's lots of ways that the student reps are able to bring experiences and perspectives to us. And to be able to see Jasmine's film yesterday, again, it's been great to have you all, and good luck in your futures. If any of our board members would like to make remarks regarding our student representatives, this would be the time to do so. Therese.
Thanks. Well, two comments. First, a thank you to all of you who are here this evening for your contribution this year. When we started having the student reps become more involved, for me, it became a lot more, the board meetings became a lot more interesting and I think a lot more meaningful. So really grateful for the time and the energy that you guys put in. There have been moments throughout the year when you have had questions that were harder than anything that I would have come up with to ask. And so that is always a great moment. And then I just wanted to acknowledge that Zoe is not here this evening because she is representing us at the district track meet. And so she couldn't be here tonight. But we do miss her, and also go Zoe.
Shauna.
I want to echo what Therese shared and just thank all of you for the time that you've put in and the dedication that you've put in to being here along with us, to sharing your voices. It takes a lot of courage to come into a space like this and to think critically about what's happening. You learned very, very quickly what's going on in this space and different ways that you could share your voice, both in terms of coming and sharing updates about what's happening in each of your schools, which really helps us feel more connected and more informed, and also the questions that you bring and the ideas that you've brought to different policies, to different conversations. You've had a real impact, not just on those policies long term, but on each of us in really encouraging us to listen more deeply, to question some of the things that have happened just because they've happened that way for a long time, and really made a lasting impact, not just for now, but for students who come onto this board in the future. So I'm excited that some of you will still be with us next year. We know some of you will be moving on, but thank you so much for being here with us. It's made a huge difference.
I don't have much to add in addition to what Therese and Shauna have said. I've been on the board for 7 years, and the involvement of the students has gotten better and better. I think you know, we can pretend like it was because we wrote a policy that included students, but really it's because we have students that want to be engaged and bring issues that get the attention of the superintendent, and so the superintendent will come and meet, and I think we see the value and the power of the student voice through this program, and I'm glad that we have decided it's a really key piece of how we operate. And thank you to the students for spending your time with us.
Ditto to what has been said. The student body is better because of your participation and leadership. This board is better because of it. The district is better because of it, and the community is. So thank you for your service. And I want to ask you for a couple of favors. The first one, don't rule out running for school board one day. So when time comes and you're ready for it, do it. Encourage someone else to do it and share with them your experience. And definitely the other favor is make sure the school that you're in knows about your experience, what worked well, what can be improved. And at the same time, for this board, this is the first time we institutionalize the process with a policy, even though it has been a long-standing tradition. So if there is any improvement, that's really going to be really important for the board to incorporate, whether the mentorship side of it or the policy about selection or your participation. So if there's any comments that you would like to share with the board, please share it with the chair or Kim. And again, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are better because of you.
I just wanted to say thank you as well. You all brought all kinds of stuff to the meetings, some advocacy, you asked a lot of questions, and you really showed up for the schools that you represent. You just didn't hang out, and I really appreciate that. And also thanks for your patience when I had to tell you sometimes we can't do that right now. During the way the meeting structures unfortunately run sometimes. But I do want to say thank you very much for your engagement and bringing the conversations where they needed to be for the experiences of students of today, because that's who you are and who you represent. So thank you so much.
The last topic I wanted to cover was, well, tonight isn't a budget committee meeting. I just wanted to, again, bring up the challenges that we have to face in our budget process. This is not fun for anybody, and I really feel, I recognize that there are people that are definitely impacted by these budget cuts and how hard that must be. And I also recognize that there is a work that we have to continue to do as we think about the future of this community. We know that the next 4 years we will continue to have fewer and fewer students in our schools because we have not many kids being born and a lot of kids graduating from high school. And so the next 4 years we will continue to see reductions. And as a community, we're supported by the number of kids that attend our schools. We know that the cost of living in Corvallis is tremendously high. And I know that that's a significant factor in why we have fewer and fewer students and young families moving into this community. And so this is work that we are all impacted by now, but it is a situation that we're going to be impacted for a number of years moving forward. And there is work that we need to do to be able to advocate. I often give the analogy that our community is becoming more like Ashland than it is like Bend. And when that happens, there's a problem in the ability to have young families in the community, and we want young families because we want the diversity of what those families bring to our community. And so one of the things I would encourage you to do is to continue to think about and look for ways to talk about affordable housing so that families can come to our community, because if that doesn't change, we're going to continue to see these declines and our schools will continue to get smaller and smaller. And as that happens, we'll lose more and more people. So that's one area I want you to be continuing to think about. The second area is school funding. Lou talked about recently or at the beginning. What I want to share with the state school fund is that my organization as superintendents, we're really focused on the roll-up from year to year, what the state accounts for in terms of the roll-up that associated with the costs we have. That has not kept up, and we are seeing what Lou talked about with the general fund dollars being down. So one of the things I'm doing is I'm going to be one of the facilitators for a statewide group of superintendents focused on school funding as we plan for the 2025 legislative session, as a way to focus our intentions and our time and our focus there. So I'll be bringing you updates in terms of what that work is and ways that you can also advocate and support, because what we're going to hear now are people who are impacted by these decisions. What I'm concerned about as well is that this is going to be something that happens this spring and the following 4 years if things don't change. And so, again, I recognize people are going to share tonight and share the challenges and the hurt. And as a community, I think we hold responsibility for that, but I also think our entire community does, as we've made decisions about housing and availability. And these are some of the consequences of that. And I think we have to be continuing to think about that and share about that, because, again, I'm concerned about not just tonight, but I'm concerned about what's to come. And frankly, I don't want to do that. And I think that's where we have to really lean in and have some hard conversations. As a community, we need to decide what kind of community do we want to be. Do we want to be in Ashland, or do we want to be a Bend? And when I say that, I'd say that because Ashland's a community that's expanding. Schools have continued to shrink. That's why I use them as my analogy, because I'm worried that that's the direction we're headed. And that's my SUPS report.
Thank you, Ryan, and look forward to hearing those updates you mentioned in future meetings too. And the next item on the agenda is student representative reports. I don't know who wants to go first.
Okay, so at CHS, this week is Safe Culture Week. We have a lot of things coming up as graduation is getting near. I believe next week we are doing Senior Kisses, which is a fundraiser for the senior class and our senior gift. May 18th is prom. We have our flag football and power tough, which is boys volleyball, on May 30th and the 31st. We have a drive-in movie on June 1st, and we have graduation coming up on June 7th.
You want to go next?
Much of what has and is and will happen at CV was, of course, mentioned, starting off with the 5K run and walk for honoring missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. Of course, it was a very successful event organized by our SAFE group at CV. Apart from that, the food drive was also mentioned, which was also very successful, led by our leadership class. A few weeks ago, last week, we actually had our student elections, and we had an amazing turnout for presidents, and in fact, we had a runoff election for sophomore class. So it was very engaging, of course. Moving on to the show that is happening at our theater, Almost Maine. They're up and running now. Please buy tickets. Come watch this weekend. And looking at basically what's happening right now in the future, of course, districts have started for many spring sports, including track. Go Zoe, she's at districts right now. So of course, we're hoping for good results from that. Looking at Teacher Appreciation Week, leadership has organized basically a special gift for each day of the week for teachers, which is something like giving them sweets or writing thank you letters to teachers. And just lastly, of course, prom is coming up on June 1st, and then almost the same week as graduation.
Before I get into the college hill board report and kind of what's going on there, I want to say a special thanks to Shauna, Superintendent Noss, and Sammy for showing up to the film festival, and anyone else who did attend. Thank you, all of you. Thank you for your kind words, not only to me, but to my peers and my classmates, and Ann Foltz, who was our teacher in helping organize and encourage us to make these. I hope that our stories kind of reached out to everyone, all three of you, and anyone else who did attend, and thank you again for all your kind words and stuff. Last night, as you guys know, was the 8th Annual College Hill Film Festival. This is a program where our students write personal narratives and then spend the next few months developing them into short films. This year the theme was Point of View, and students shared stories of overcoming challenges, taking ownership of their lives, and gratitude for people who have made an impact on their lives. And there was even a whole film told through comic books. If you missed this year's event, I would encourage you to put it in your calendar for next year. Also, feel free to reach out to Mr. Wright to get a copy of the link for the films. They are incredible. The construction class has a big week. They welcomed in Peter Sladen from Sladen Homes, who is interested in hiring some of our graduates. He spoke to the group about what a day in the life of a contractor looks like, shared insights into both getting and keeping a job in the construction industry, and there was an in-depth discussion on the differences between working for a small independent business and getting in with a union. In addition, they just finished up construction of their own homemade human-powered mechanical bull. No one has yet stayed on for 8 seconds, including Mr. Wright, our own principal, barely made it too.
The urban farm is now in planting season. They're cutting back weeds, beginning to till the soil, starting crops in pots, and making plans for harvest season. The foundation has funded summer work to harvest and sell produce this summer. We're so grateful for their support. We have students finishing up their graduation requirements and celebrating at the wall every week. In addition, students are presenting their senior service projects, and they are incredible. Each graduate completes an independent project in the community, solidifies their postgraduate plan, and presents their work and plans to the entire College Hill staff. Projects this year have included coaching for Lego robotics, trail building in McDonald Forest, activities, programming at Conifer House, and coordinating a community blood drive. These experiences and the opportunity for students to exhibit their learning and plans are such a great way to finish high school well. We are so proud of our graduates.
Great, thanks you all for all your updates, and let's see. Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. We will now open the public comment period. We value the lived experiences of students, families, staff, and community, and welcome public comment as a necessary and important part of the work of the district and board. The complete guidelines for public comment are available on the registration table at the back of the gym and on the board's website. I will share a few important points now. When it is your turn to speak, please come forward and have a seat and direct your comments to the board. Also, you need to turn on your mic. When this green light's on, the mic's on. And if it's not on, then they can't hear you on the live stream. And we might not be able to hear you too. Speakers may offer objective criticism of district operations and programs, but the board will not hear complaints concerning individual district personnel. As a reminder, you will have 3 minutes to make your comments. I will alert you when you have 30 seconds left and when your time is up. There's a little timer with lights on it. It's green when it starts, yellow is 30 seconds, red is your time's up. It's really hard to interrupt you all when you're talking because it takes away from your time, so I try to catch your eye, but if you keep an eye on the lights, that helps too. But I do have to interrupt you when the red light actually does turn on. Following your comments, the board will have 3 minutes to ask clarifying questions, but are not able to engage in conversation. If board members would like to revisit a topic or issue brought up during public comment, they may do so at their appropriate time in the agenda. And I'm just going to share this is one of the hardest parts of the public comment, especially we know you have a lot of concerns you're bringing this evening, and it's not that we don't want to talk about them, we just cannot have conversation at this time about them. We can ask questions and that's it. So I just want to make sure you all knew why we weren't engaging in conversation with you during those 3 minutes. And you're always welcome to follow up with us later on as well. Before you start your comments, please state your name for the record and state whether you reside within the school district boundary. So don't forget that part, that's important. And so I know we have a number of folk testifying, and Kim's gonna be calling people up here in a second.
My name is Naomi Hartman. I teach music here at Lincoln Elementary School, and I live in the district. I would like to talk about the 10 teachers who have been laid off from our district, the cuts that are being made to art and music programs, and the loss of librarians, skills trainers, tech support, and custodial staff in Corvallis. These reductions include cutting the number of arts minutes essentially in half at the elementary level, reductions of visual arts at all levels, and a second year of cuts to the band program at CHS. This also includes layoffs of 4 art teachers and 1 music teacher. I would also like to note that cutting library, skills trainers, tech support, and custodial hours technically come out of the district portion of the budget. However, those cuts are felt at the building level. When public arts education is reduced, it creates huge equity problems because arts become something that only certain students can access during the school day. Others, if they can afford it, will do arts outside of school, while those who do not have either of those options simply miss out. The job of public schools is not to provide a quality education to some students and a mediocre education to others based on income as well as other factors of privilege. Our job is to provide a free, well-rounded, quality, whole child education to all students. So my question is, could our district have made different decisions about how to do these budget cuts that would have had less negative impact on our students? We know that Corvallis has the largest budget reserves in the state by far, and that Corvallis has many more district-level administrators than other districts, including districts like Salem, which is much larger than we are. Our district-level employees are also highly paid, especially when compared to certified and classified employees. We know that the district had hoped to absorb the budget shortfalls by attrition, meaning that when an employee retires or moves, we don't replace them. However, it is apparent that attrition will not be enough, so we have to decide who gets laid off. What I want to know is, can these layoffs be avoided by either opening our reserves to more spending or by doing a larger portion of cuts at the district level? And are there any district-level employees currently being laid off, not to be confused with reduced or leaving voluntarily? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like the district office is doing their cuts by attrition, while teachers are losing their jobs. If I were in the difficult position of deciding who to lay off, I would start at the very top, because I believe that is the only equitable way to do it. If it were up to me, I would reduce the number of superintendents in Corvallis to 1 instead of 2. We currently have a superintendent and an assistant superintendent. And I would reduce the number of curriculum directors to 1 instead of 3. I would do everything I could to not lay off any staff who work directly with students. Now, Superintendent Noss, I have nothing against you either personally or professionally, but the truth is you are our highest paid employee and you don't work directly with students. In fact, your salary is approximately 5 times what mine is. In addition, this year you received a raise or maybe a cost of living adjustment that is almost as much as my yearly salary. It probably feels personal to you for me to suggest that you should be the first person laid off, and I get that.
Naomi, we gotta have you just pause for a second, okay? Any questions? I have to see if there's questions first. Can you set the question timer? Any questions?
I definitely can.
And can you finish, if you have a...
It's about 3 sentences, if you're okay with that.
If you can finish that, I would appreciate that.
Great. What I want you to understand is that when teachers lose colleagues to layoffs, it feels personal to us as well. And even more important than losing colleagues is the fact that our district keeps saying for 2 years in a row now that you are trying to do these cuts in a way that has the least negative impact on students. But you aren't. If you truly wanted to put students first, you would lay off district-level administrators who don't work with students. instead of laying off teachers, librarians, skills trainers, and other staff who work directly with students all day, every day.
Thank you, Naomi. The mic's still on too, you don't have to press the button.
Hi, my name is Alex Goff, and I live in the district, as well as attend Crescent Valley High School as a junior. I now serve as a student body president-elect with student representative Zoe. I'm here tonight to express concerns over the disappointing progress in communication. The board has included community engagement in their 24 to 29 goals. Despite this, I do not feel there has been effective engagement with the community, especially around large decisions which impact all members of our district. I want to begin with the Youth Truth Survey and corresponding advisor slides that are shown to us every Wednesday and Friday. Currently, this survey uses the main method for student input. In the advisor slides, the results from the year's prior survey are displayed. The slides yesterday stated 28% of students don't feel prepared for post-high school. I heard another student ask, then why are we getting rid of AVID? Well, I believe hard decisions are made in light of budget cuts. I don't believe the removal of programs made especially for extra help with college preparedness is a step in the right direction. Besides that, Advisor is bogged down in slides and videos that are the result of the Youth Truth Survey. This makes it hard for us to use Advisor as an outlet for student and school information due to attention spans. But on the validity of the survey itself, most students click the middle option to get through it fast. It takes 45 minutes to an hour to do this survey with diligence. When these issues were brought to district office administration who were visiting CV, we were told that the rates on the surveys were consistent, making it reliable. To me, this shows that students consistently don't put effort into long surveys that they don't understand the impact of. In addition, students and families face immense barriers to provide input on district issues. For example, in the community-wide communication sent via Parent Square about budget cuts, the only methods for input listed were to come speak at the school board or write an email. Students and faculty should be proactively included in discussions before decisions are made. Writing an email to the superintendent or speaking on a live stream to their elected officials is very daunting for many students. I'm here to request that the district put more focus on including students in decisions before they are made. At the February 8th meeting, when asked how students were able to give input in budget decisions, the only example mentioned was that we had the ability to forecast for classes in the upcoming year. This to me is unacceptable as the primary source of student input in decisions that affect their daily lives, and it's not an example of effective community engagement. The impacts of these communication issues are seen every day. For example, the school board had questions about the budget impacts at elementary schools that were shut down at the last budget meeting, or hysteria spreads because of quotes in newspapers stating certain positions have been cut. The district response is typically to move and correct that information. I experienced this myself when I brought concerns about instructions given to Crescent Valley Math. If the district works to communicate throughout processes and not after they have finished, the community will be better informed. But this has to be done in effective ways. In my view, the district must prioritize student and faculty input throughout the decision process. It is crucial to collaborate with the community on how to communicate
Alex,
more
I'm gonna have to
effectively.
have you to pause. Thank you. You all have any questions? Do you have any, do you want to summarize any last points that you wanted to make from what
Sure.
you had prepared?
I just had a few recommendations for how to effectively engage students in communication, but of course it shouldn't just be up to me and my input, but forums at schools with district officials, office hours including virtual options with administrators designated for students, continual evaluation of communication methods, regular surveys and feedback mechanisms, utilization of digital platforms like Remind in Portland Public Schools, they use that, and student advisory committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Oh,
Hey, Alex, can you leave that with me or send it to us? Okay.
And while Kim's calling, can you call the next person? While you're coming up, if you all have written statements that you want to email to board@corvallis www.k12.or.us. It'll go to all of us at the same time without having to type out all our names. If you have written comments you want to follow up and so we can reread them later.
Hi, my name is Leah Poole. I'm the Director of Bands at CHS, and I live in Albany. I am deeply concerned for the future of the arts in the Corvallis School District. I attended the superintendent's chat, where I listened to the explanation of why the funding is being severely cut. I listened as the data on home values, cost of living, and projection of birth rates were explained. I see the research of why we are in the state that we are in, but what I don't see is the research being done on what keeps kids in school, what makes families want to send their kids to Corvallis School District, and what will increase enrollment over time. When families are choosing where to send their children, what sets Corvallis apart? What makes kids want to come to this school? Where are their voices in these huge decisions that affect the trajectory of their lives? The arts serve such a wide population of students reaching across boundaries of race, socioeconomic backgrounds, and learning styles, and they are a place where any child can excel and thrive. These cuts essentially tell these students that their creativity, their passion, their reason for coming to school doesn't matter. If enrollment is our primary reason why our funding is so dismal, then let's do research on what keeps kids in school. I guarantee you the arts are on top of that list. It's no secret that the budget crisis is not only affecting the arts, but almost every program in the district. So I'm not here to say what should or shouldn't be cut, and I am not dismissing the loss of other programs. I am, however, concerned with how the choice is being made. I have spoken with many colleagues across the district, and the responses are all the same. The district has no choice, everyone is being affected. But the truth is you always have a choice. It's who you choose to be a part of the conversation, and the fact is you did not involve the most important constituents. So instead of a small number of people looking at short-term solutions and short-term numbers in classes, let the teachers who you hired to take care of your kids come to the table and find sustainable solutions. Trust us that we have the students' best interests at heart and not just our individual needs of our programs. Look at the patterns over time of how the arts programs have benefited our kids. The cuts that were made to the arts will have severe and long-lasting negative effects, and the programs that are left standing are now at risk of being eliminated over time. The arts teachers that you don't see here today are preparing for the CSD Art Show on May 21st, the state band contest tomorrow, and right now, the mariachi ensemble from Linus Pauling is performing at the Mother's Day Fiesta at Garfield Elementary. Despite these deep cuts in all areas, they're moving forward, inspiring kids and teaching them that the arts do in fact matter.
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Jackson Soltero. I do live in the district boundary, and I am here to discuss my and others' concerns regarding significant cuts to the performing and visual arts programs throughout the Corvallis School District. Personally, I love what we do and the music we make, as I am a band student myself. As well as this, our program helps less academically successful students stay included in programs that they enjoy and expose students to experiences that they may never get to try as an adult. To add to this, the arts provides a creative outlet for students to interact with each other and socialize. Last year in May, our budget was slashed in a similar manner to this year. Teachers are being laid off and others must travel between campuses to fill gaps, which causes unnecessary stress and labor, which because of cuts will likely be unpaid. When classes are cut, students are put into class levels that may not be appropriate for their abilities, causing a stunt in learning for all students. While general student enrollment is declining, there has been an influx of performing and visual arts students this year, and having less classes would make rosters unreasonably large. Essential classes have been cut, such as the band's percussion ensemble. This decision was not made with the discretion of our teachers and will create a disorganized and inefficient learning environment. This is unacceptable. The program that we all love so much is suffering. Protests of last year did not work, and performing and visual arts students at Corvallis High School are willing to do what we need to do to allocate our department the funding that it needs and deserves. Limited funding has been divided in a manner that I feel is unfair towards the arts and students like me, compared to other departments such as sports, including football and baseball. In regards to budget allocation, I hope you make the right decision. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you, Jackson.
And can you just repeat the email?
Yeah, it's board@corvallis.k12.org.us. And it's also on the district webpage. If you go to the board page, it has it right there too.
All right, thank you.
Hello, members of the board. I'm Connor Lindberg, and I'm a student at CHS. I wanted to talk today about the concerning way the budget for the next year is set up. The projected budget almost exclusively cuts arts programs district-wide, with a few cuts in other departments. I understand the reason behind these budget cuts is lowering enrollment, but slashing arts programs is not how to deal with that. The main controllable reason for low enrollment is the growing prevalence of homeschooling and digital learning. In the post-COVID era, online learning has become an effective and appealing way for students to learn from the comfort of their own home, causing enrollment in public schools to drop. The key to solve this, however, is not to slash art programs to try and balance the budget, but rather support them. The one thing online schooling can't replicate is the feeling of creating something beautiful with your friends, whether that's in band or art. Take my situation, for instance. My first year of in-person school was freshman year, and I lost a lot of my friend group over COVID since we couldn't see each other. Being involved in the band program allowed me to rebuild those social connections that other classes would not have supported as easily. Throughout the good and bad days of high school, I could always look forward to sitting down and play my soul out into my trombone every other day. I excelled at my STEM classes so I could keep participating in the band program. It allowed me to keep going, and I don't know where I'd be without it. Band programs and others like it are integral to a student's academic success and social success, and to deprive students of that is criminal. How can a student be expected to be enthused at sitting silently in class all day without communication or creativity? Might as well just take online school at that point, which results in lower enrollment and further budget cutting of art programs. It's a vicious cycle that cannot be allowed to continue, and that is why the majority of band students and myself at CHS have decided that, should the budget proceed as planned, we will not be playing pep tunes or halftime shows for the football or basketball games until the budget equally cuts from other programs. We cannot stand idly by while something we love and that is an integral part of our life get taken away from us and future generations. Thank you.
Oh, just a second. Is there any questions? Okay. Thank you, Connor. Also, we're actually at the end of our 20 minutes allocated for public comments. So I wanted to get board consent to extend the time period. Just unanimous consent, is that cool? Okay, cool, thank you. It's part of our public meeting laws, y'all, just to let you know why we have to do this.
Hi, I'm Sarah Farrell. I'm the LMT at Sheldon Middle School. I live in Corvallis. To the school board, this letter is in regards to the proposed cuts to the library staff for the 24-25 school year. First, we do want to acknowledge that all these cuts are terrible and these decisions are hard and there are always real people involved. We ask that the district find a one-time item that is approximately the same value as the proposed staffing cuts for the library and use the reserve funds to cover those expenses at least until the next biennium budget for the state is settled. The library staff offer an excellent return on investment. Cutting library FTE is disastrous for our patrons and our fiduciary responsibility. If the state provides sufficient funds in the next biennium, will library FTE return to current levels, or will something else be deemed more important? We will be losing valuable resources, staff that have relationships, knowledge of collections, and all of the processes that occur in the school library setting for a short-term gain. The current proposal cuts elementary FTE by a bit more than half, but that rate varies from school to school. I would like to note that the current FTE in each elementary building is 0.81 FTE, or 6.5 hours a day. Next year, elementary schools can be expected to be served by library staff 3 or 4 hours a day. And in one case, it is expected that the library staff is limited to 2 hours a day. Library staff are less than 1% of district employees, but are being cut by 30%. We interact with every student in our schools. My colleague had to go. Is it possible for me to speak for her as well? It's Becky Torgerson.
You can, if it's the same letter, you have about a minute left, and I'm going to have to pause you after that.
The elementary library staff currently carry out the following functions in the buildings, and I will just hit the highlights here. Class time, lessons planned, collection development, updating our online catalog and book collections, inventory, interlibrary loans that support students across all of our schools in the district, non-class time in the library, connecting with teaching staff to support students, acting as a counterpart to the Central Instructional Media Center, or CIMC, and coordinating with them. Maker spaces, read alouds, table activities, reading engagement, promotion programs. At DLI schools, plan and coordinate Lucha Libros competition, which is the Spanish version of OBOB. Coordinate, support, and recruit volunteers to help with these programs. Thank you for your time.
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Still green here. My name is Callie. I am the library media technician at Mountain View Elementary. And I will be talking about how the library space functions and the research behind us in the last 50 years. The elementary library space acts as more than just a book warehouse. We are a third space, a space apart from home or classroom or work, where a patron can be a little bit more themselves. Students will report that the library is a safe space. And this staff has worked at creating a diverse collection and a space that fosters inclusion. This elementary library staff is one of the few points of contact that can be consistent through a child's elementary years. This allows for a relationship built so that the interests and abilities can be acknowledged and accommodated through suggestions for books and media resources, as well as our collection development. It is that relationship that fosters a love of reading in our students and a love of learning long term. There are many studies that show the benefits of library staff within a school building. We cited them in the letter that we will submit to you because we are librarians. Cutting these services is devastating. The Institution of Education Sciences has shown that students who attend schools with teacher librarians and quality library facilities perform better on standardized tests and are more likely to graduate, even when you control for school size and student income level. We are the equalizing force that is the best return on investment. And that's not the only study to find that truth. There's a 2015 study in Washington State. A school librarian is a predictor of better math scores. There is more than 50 years of research, over 60 studies, and across all of them is the reality that underserved students see the most robust gain from us. And yet they remain the students least likely to be given access. Students prosper when administrators, teachers, and librarians themselves think of a school librarian as a school leader, as a teacher, as a co-teacher, as an in-service professional development provider, as a curriculum designer, as an instructional resources manager, as a reading motivator, as a technology teacher, and a source of instructional support. Thank you.
Any questions? Anyone? Thank you, Callie.
My name is Sonia Batchelor, and I live in the district, and I work here at Lincoln Elementary and have been the LMT for 8 years now. The history of the elementary library in CSD. 7 years ago, in 2017, the elementary library staff were given additional hours from 0.5 FTE to 0.81 FTE. The proposal that is under current consideration would put the library system with fewer hours that it had before that change was made. Between COVID and bond work, this was the first normal year this staff has had in quite a while. It was noted among the group that this was also a year in which everyone had at least 2 years on the job, meaning that training requirements were minimized and everyone could focus on the core work of the library. The libraries are in much better place than they were 5 years ago. The current proposal splits some library staff between buildings, including myself. This is a difficult situation that will not be conducive to a functional library. Every library in the school district has its own unique character. This character is created by the school community, but is driven and directed by the library staff. Library staff make decisions on what books to purchase, what to remove, where to place and display them. It takes a few years to get to know one collection, and the task of getting to know 2 collections and a whole additional school's patrons will be difficult, and patrons will suffer. And for me in particular, it might be up to 700 kids per week. The level of benign neglect that would occur with the proposed cuts would quickly set the libraries back. The current list of functions that the library staff provide will need to be cut. We believe that they are all crucial. If the library staff are unable to do these tasks due to limited hours, then who will be asked to do these tasks? Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, Sonia.
Hi, my name is Erica Cheney. I work at the Central Instructional Media Center. I'm a parent of 2 CSD students and also live in the district. Library staff are also asset managers. The library staff operate the library management system at the building level. This system is part of the fiduciary responsibility that the district has to its investors and taxpayers. The system tracks library books and curriculum and provides the district with vital information on where these items are, or should be. Without the building level support, the system also gets neglected. The system ensures that this tracking is done. The systems to ensure that this tracking is done the systems that would have to be in place to ensure that this is done correctly would be an additional burden on teaching staff or other administrative staff. This is an aspect of the job that is asset management and is clearly would suffer, as well as the student engagement aspects. The estimated value of the elementary library collections is just over $1 million. This only includes replacement costs and is not adjusted for inflation. This does not include the time it would take to track lost books or the additional processing time to make the books available to students so that they are trackable. The current check-in and check-out system is not perfect, and books are often borrowed from the library without being checked out. One major cause of this is that there are times when the library is unmanned by staff who can do check-in and check-out. There are many attempts at workarounds, but compliance is spotty at best. Further reductions in staff time means that instances of library materials just disappearing would increase, as would the unreliableness of the library management system. In addition to library materials, the elementary staff also help CIMC track curricula at the building level. This is not an insignificant area of investment for the district. This would be another thing that would get neglected.
Any questions? Thank you, Erica.
There we go. Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Rebecca Saray. I've been in the district working for 12 plus years. I have held every position related to library services with the exception of district librarian. That includes all the positions at the CIMC. So I know with experience what all of these librarians are talking about. The American Association of School Librarians takes the position that an effective school library has a certified librarian at the helm, provides personalized learning environments, and offers equitable access to resources to ensure a well-rounded education for every student. The state of Oregon, through ODE, also sets standards for a media program. We believe that the proposed district cuts would continue to erode the intended outcomes of these standards. April is School Library Month, and the library staff asked students and staff to post notes about the things they loved about the library. There are the usual comments about the books, but overwhelmingly, the student feedback is about the staff and the safety students feel in the library spaces. The libraries are so much more than just books. They are people and communities, quiet spaces for studying, flexible spaces for forming connections, and where there are guides and coaches to help navigate information and critical thinking. And finally, they are places where imagination and innovation bloom. We would like to leave you with a quote from Susan Schvett, the director of the Seabrook Library in New Hampshire, that we think aptly describes what we will see at the elementary level next year. And that it is, a library without a librarian is a warehouse. This letter is signed by Erica Cheney at the CIMC. Please raise your hand. Nicole Saray at the CIMC. Kelsey Ward at Linus Pauling. Becky Torgerson from Adams, Lachelle Hendricks from Catherine Jones Harrison, Sonia Batchelor from Lincoln, Catherine Melvin from Crescent Valley, myself as well as Crescent Valley, Kara Miller from Bessie Coleman, Christy Kegler from Letitia Carson, Sarah Juranic from Franklin, Ace Sassaman from Corvallis High School, Sarah Farrell from Sheldon, Callie Odom Dallenberg from Mountain View. Thank you.
Pause you for a second. Okay. Any questions? You were right on time then with that red light. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Oh, before you can go ahead and come up, but it's about time. It's 8 o'clock, and the student representatives are excused at 8. So just letting you all know if they are leaving, that's what's going on. If you all want to stay, you are of course welcome to. But if you need to go do homework or study for exams, I know there's exams going on this week. You all can go ahead and head out. It's AP history, or AP testing this week too, for some students.
Ready? My name is Lachelle Hendricks. I live in the district. I'm a parent to 3 students in the Corvallis School District. I've been a substitute library media technician in the school district for the last 2 years. I'm currently the long-term library substitute at Catherine Jones Harrison Elementary. I'm going to speak fast so I can get everything in. School libraries are often referred to as the great equalizers in education, providing all students, regardless of background or socioeconomic status, with equitable access to books and resources. We reach every student. We, their book guides, try to develop a relationship with each of our 300+ students so we can help them discover their own love of reading. We show every student how a library works. We set them up for future libraries. School libraries are the primary source of books for students who may not have access to them elsewhere. School libraries have a profound impact on literacy development and academic achievement. Numerous studies have shown that students who have access to well-stocked libraries and qualified librarians perform better on standardized tests, demonstrate higher levels of reading comprehension, and exhibit greater overall academic achievement. When libraries are cut, our students from low-income families are disproportionately affected, as they may lack the means to access books outside of school. When we cut libraries, they face further barriers to educational success, perpetuating systematic inequities. This exacerbates existing disparities in educational opportunities and widens the achievement gap between affluent and disadvantaged students. As a library media technician in the elementary school, we are not just there to read aloud a story and check books in and out. Our read-alouds are important, and they are themed to support teacher curriculum, digital literacy, and universal human values. We are here for more than that. When a teacher has a class struggling with a behavior, we find books to support their classroom. When a parent tells us their student is struggling with picking on another student, we help them find books that show the perspective of someone being bullied and someone doing the bullying. We teach students to find themselves in books and to find the perspectives of others in books so they can understand and empathize with a point of view different from their own. When a student reads multiple languages and we don't have those books available, we are finding and borrowing them from other schools in our district. The list of how we are there to support our staff and students is too long for my 3-minute comment, so I will submit a more detailed letter for you. While every class has a library special once a week, we are there all day because student and teacher needs are not limited to a 30 or 45-minute time slot. Our district website says that addressing inequities in our educational system is one of our core values. Are we truly committed to this? The first of our district's 4 pillars of equity is we will align strategic priorities, resources, and staffing allocations to achieve equitable outcomes. Are we truly committed to this?
Any questions? Thank you, Lachelle.
Hi there. I live in the Corvallis School District, and I volunteer at the elementary school library that my children attended 30 years ago and more. So I'm I don't want to repeat or re-echo what the professionals have said already this evening, but I just, from my perspective, I volunteer 2 afternoons a week at the library, and it is that respite, that good place to be. It is for me as a volunteer, and I know that the kids in my neighborhood whom I'm acquainted with love that library, and particularly the librarian being there for that student's entire elementary school career, I think is a very important thing. And they do get to know each student and know, is that student checking out a book today? Why not? What's the deal? So just want to, speaking in terms of showing up so you know that it's other people are supporting the librarians and the school libraries. Thank you.
Hold on a second, just one second. I didn't hear you restate your name. It's like the public record thing.
Didn't. Rosemary McGee.
Thank you. And did anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you, Rosemary.
Sure.
My name is Catherine Melvin. I'm also going to be talking about libraries. I live in Corvallis. I have 2 kids who also go to the schools here. I started working for the school district in 2008, and this is my 7th year working in the library department. The first 6.5 were at Catherine Jones Harrison Elementary, and I recently started working in the Crescent Valley High School Library. Our department and many other important roles that directly interact with students were devastated by the recent budget cuts. In fact, many of the celebrations that you all mentioned in your board reviews were all highlighting the departments that are intended to be cut. You are losing knowledgeable staff from the libraries and dedicated people. Had I stayed at Catherine Jones Harrison, I likely would have been told that next year I would be splitting my time between 2 schools and that my KJ8 students would be receiving roughly half the library instruction and access time is now. In this district, we have been talking for years about the importance of building relationships with students in order to build trust and make gains academically, socially, and emotionally. In our libraries, we've built solid relationships with our students and the many parent and community volunteers who know us and trust us and love the libraries as much as we do. So maybe we need to build better relationships with you who hold the financial power, and not just those of you who are in front of me, but those of you who are behind me as well. And we can't start building relationships with you if you don't know what we really do. We need to break down the misconceptions of what people think a librarian does with their time, so that the value we bring cannot be pushed aside. So to the board and the executive team, come spend time with us in the libraries. My letter is an invitation. Not a brief tour and a wave, or to take pictures of our gorgeous spaces that we created for the bond. It's important to visit for the celebrations, but for you also to see the behind-the-scenes work that we do. Experience the joy of connecting students to a story, but also the prep work to find just the right book for the right class at the right time in order to make those connections. Make a beautiful display of books, but then pore over journals, reviews, and cross-reference the collections of other libraries to get the next batch of new books ready to order while you hope you have the money to actually buy them. Observe the kids who get to truly be themselves at school in few other spaces than in the library, and then you tell them that the library will be closed at recess next year. Help us with the tasks that we already do not have time to do and cannot imagine doing with less time. I need to be up here tonight because I am passionate about libraries and what the space and resources can do for kids' academic and mental health. And my voice is shaking because at one time I thought this was it, a position to grow old with.
I'm gonna have to pause you, Rosemary. Is there any questions?
I have just a couple more sentences.
Can you please read the rest of that?
But these thoughts have wavered more recently, and in January I started my Master's in Library and Information Science program. And sadly, this means I am working my way out of this district right now, one semester at a time. And maybe I'll end up at OSU where I'll be paid a wage that lets our family stay in Corvallis. Or maybe we won't be able to stay in Corvallis, but I'll find a library or a district like Eugene that, despite statewide budget reductions, is hiring 5 full-time teacher librarians for the next school year. Wherever I land, it will be in a place that uses my professional training and honors my experience, passion, and dedication in a way that feels different from this district right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Kevin Jones. I live in the district. I have a son in the district. In the schools, I'm married to a board member, but I'm speaking for myself. Few other disclosures. I emailed all this already, and my math was a little off, so I'm sorry about that. I hope to get that corrected right now. And I am a librarian at OSU. Okay, here we go. I am here to ask the board to support and approve the superintendent's ability to spend from the reserve to below policy mandated levels so as to allow him to redirect the necessary funds to sustain school library FTE at the 23-24 level until the next biennium, where we hopefully can get Salem to do a better job. My colleagues in the profession have already talked about all the research that has been done over decades that demonstrates their effectiveness in improving literacy for our students. They've already talked about the loss of time that our elementary students will have next year. Just want to reiterate, with corrected math hopefully, that's like 5 or 6% of their entire elementary career will be without a librarian in the building. That's a lot. Our students probably would understand better than some of us that a loss of 5% means you can't get a critical hit on a D20 in a role-playing game, and that means you can never do your best. That's scary. Sorry. My student is a much more engaged reader because of the LMTs that are at our schools. He's a better runner because of our LMTs as well. Wow, I don't even work for you. I know that most of you have a PhD, and I'd like you to imagine not having access to your library or your librarian for like 30 or 40% of the time you were in school, and you're adults. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, Kevin.
Hi, my name is Maria Simmons and I live in the district. I have been a 3rd grade teacher at Catherine Jones Harrison for the last 7 years. Before teaching, I was a library media tech at our school for 4 years, and I noticed in some of the speeches that was right when the level of time went up for our librarians, and one of the reasons why I changed my job. I think that I have a unique experience in understanding the impacts of libraries on our elementary school communities. When I was the librarian at Catherine Jones Harrison, my hours would change from year to year. With that came the level of support that I was able to give our students and teachers. In recent years, the library makerspace has become the heart of our school, an open, inclusive space that is vital to promoting literacy. I want to share with you the impact that the library has made on my third graders. When a student is excited to read a book in a series, I can send them to the library to check it out. When I was a librarian, I wanted teachers to send their students to the library, but students rarely checked out books outside of their classroom library time because of my limited availability. In the last 2 years, our library makerspace has been a recess option for all students. Every day, I notice that my students access this space to do puzzles, build creations with STEM supplies, play chess, check out books, read, and chat with their friends. I also see that our books are circulating more often as my students line up at the end of recess with their new library books. They know that they don't have to wait until the next library day to get inspired by a good book. Zaretta Hammond said, "Literacy is the epicenter of equity." In our CCC curriculum, we teach our students how to choose books to help them grow as readers. They learn to gauge whether a book is hard, whether it's too hard, too easy, and if it fits their interest. Students need time during individualized daily reading or their IDR time to figure out if a book is a good fit. Next year, will students have to wait a week or two to find a new book if their IDR book is not a good fit? Many teachers do have classroom libraries, but students need a wealth of books to choose from. I know that Corvallis School District has to make some hard decisions due to state funding and enrollment. Please don't take a step back in limiting library access for our elementary students.
Any questions? Thank you, Maria. Okay, hearing no further comments, the public comment period is now closed. I wanted to thank you all for taking the time out of your evening to provide testimony. I know it takes a lot in general, but especially when there's hard decisions like this to come and testify. So thanks to each and every one of you, not only the people who testify, but the people who came to support those testifying as we have our conversations moving forward. And I'm going to ask the board if you would like to have a break. Okay, if we can put us on break. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Thanks so much for your patience as we took a little extra longer than normal break this evening. And next on the agenda is resolution number 240501, Acknowledgement of Caribbean American Heritage Month, and this is for action. Is there any discussion? Shauna?
Sure. So it was a pleasure to be able to work on this collaboratively in terms of continuing our work in acknowledging Heritage Months, and this in particular, the acknowledgement of Caribbean American Heritage Month, to affirm and elevate the identities of students, their families, and other community members as part of our ongoing work of the board.
Other discussion before we? No? Okay. Would anyone wish to make a motion?
I move to adopt resolution number 24/0501, Acknowledgement of Caribbean American Heritage Month as submitted.
Seconded by Judah, seconded by Sammy. Is there any further discussion? Okay, we're gonna, since there's no further discussion, it has been moved by Judah and seconded by Sammy to adopt resolution number 240501, Acknowledgement of Caribbean American Heritage Month. Sarah?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Shauna?
Aye.
Therese?
Aye.
Judah?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion passes unanimously. We're going to go ahead and read that one since it has not been read. And I don't know if I should just go ahead and read the whole thing, or do you all want to?
Can I suggest that Shauna read it, just because she did so
Yes.
much of the
Thank
work
you. I don't
with
mind
all
that
of
at all.
that. I really appreciate that she really led this and did the majority of the work. Therese, do you agree?
I just want to also say thank you, because really, I know all three of our names are on there, but I was like, we need a comma here, and like really, Shauna carried it, so thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Would you like to read it, Shauna? And before you do, I wanted to also thank you for your work on it, and also for collaborating for any edits and stuff on this. It's important that we all work together, and Chris and Therese, you also help, even if you feel like you didn't. Reviewing is also helping, and thank you all for your work on that. So I'll hand it over to Shauna.
Sure. Well, thank you, and I also do want to thank everyone for editing, collaborating, and that review, which does really make a difference and help a lot. So, acknowledgement of Caribbean American Heritage Month, resolution number 24-0501. Whereas the Corvallis School District recognizes and pays tribute to the significant contributions made in our community by Caribbean Americans, which includes members of the Indigenous, Black, and Latinx, Latine communities, and reflect people directly from and with ancestry from all nations and lands in and around the Caribbean Sea. Whereas the Corvallis School District affirms that students, families, staff, and community members should be valued for all aspects of their identities, and whereas Caribbean American Heritage Month grew out of a campaign led by Dr. Claire A. Nelson in 2004 to have June recognized as National Caribbean American Heritage Month, and whereas Caribbean Americans are largely left out of academic discourse, and whereas Caribbean Americans have been and continue to be impacted by lasting impacts of colonization, including violence, discrimination, and systemic barriers, and whereas June became recognized as Caribbean American Heritage Month nationally following presidential proclamation in 2006, and whereas Oregon has yet to officially recognize Caribbean American Heritage Month, and whereas Caribbean Americans have contributed to the history and collective future of Corvallis and Benton County, Oregon, and whereas Caribbean American History Month provides an opportunity to continue the district's growth in learning about the many contributions of Caribbean Americans to the nation, world, and local community, and whereas education is a necessary component for creating a more equitable and anti-racist community, nation, and world, and whereas the Corvallis School District has made a commitment to equity and anti-racism, And whereas the Corvallis School District has a responsibility to honor and respect the diverse histories of our community. And whereas the Corvallis School District believes each and every student must be celebrated and appreciated for the distinct and vibrant contributions made by sharing cultures, language, ideas, beliefs, and values within a school community. Therefore, let it be resolved by the Board of Education of the Corvallis School District does hereby proclaim June 2024, as well as each June annually, as Caribbean American Heritage Month in the district, and strongly encourages students, families, staff, and community members to join in existing local celebrations, and encourage all schools in the district to help highlight this month in great appropriate ways, as well as highlight the contributions of all Caribbean American peoples to the local community, nation, and beyond, both historically and in current times. Adopted by the Board of Directors of School District Number 509J, Corvallis, of Benton and Lynn Counties, Oregon, at its regular meeting this 9th day of May, 2024.
Thank you, Shauna, for reading that, and then we'll sign it after the meeting. So, yes. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the K-12 science curriculum presentation, and we have Amy, Kim, and Nikki.
You have in your packets a report on the middle school science adoption, and I'm happy to take any questions. I don't have a presentation.
I know there's questions. Teresa, you had a question? Okay.
Thank you. I have one question for you. Based on the feedback from instructors, students, and community members and your evaluation of curriculums, is there a particular either curriculum gap or aspect of maybe addressing issues related to equity that you feel like this particular adoption will address in our district?
As we went through the programs and did the pilot work and used our evaluation tool within our district to do this, we felt that the one that is being recommended, that there was very good for the equity, and there wasn't a huge gap.
Thank you for the report. My question is if you could highlight the difference between where we are and where this curriculum is with respect to addressing the scientist identity. There is a gender inequities in students believing that the science is relevant to their potential career, and my understanding is that's rooted by or changes in the middle school or gets solidified in the middle school where students may find themselves in it or not. And I'm wondering if you could highlight how this curriculum could bridge those inequities and how existing the status quo what's the difference if there is any?
Yeah, of course. The students, when we got some of the student feedback, there were students that did respond that they actually saw themselves in the curriculum that they piloted, which was wonderful. And the curriculum is very neutral when it's talking about the ideas, right? It's talking about local phenomena, it's talking about the science facts in itself, and it does highlight different scientists, and it focused a lot on women in the process.
Thank you so much.
Sarah, and then Shauna.
Yeah, I'm just curious, as you think about this curriculum that, ideally we have them for several years because they're expensive to readopt. And we know that science changes and we have world events that are driven by science. Is there any adaptability in this curriculum to address new science or using current events to understand the science?
Yes, this science curriculum that we're recommending for the board is actually built on that very basis, is that it's taking local phenomena, current events, current changes to the science, and actually making that what the units are built on. So it's very fluid and changes as they move.
So, you know, in 2 years, if something happens, there would be a way to include that in the curriculum.
Absolutely. There would be time, third trimester, to get something into the curriculum. Yeah, and the people who are working with us, if the adoption goes through, the people who would be working with this are local in Portland, and they've already been down several times through the pilot to show the teachers how to be able to modify that to fit not just our area, but what is current in science, what's going on in the news.
Thank you so much for putting together this report and your thoughtfulness and gathering feedback. No curricula are perfect. Were there things that folks disliked about this curriculum, or were there aspects of it that you felt might need to be supplemented on other ways?
There wasn't really anything that people didn't like about it. We're not going to be adopting, there's a part of it that has a workbook that goes with it, and we're not going to take that piece with it because the teachers thought that was too confining and that it wouldn't be as productive as to just be able to have the kids do their own journaling as they're working. But there really was not a downside to the curriculum that we were able to find. They were super pleased with it.
Thanks, Kim. Are there other, is it okay if I? Okay. Are there support needs that you expect would have to come along with this curricula in terms of teachers really feeling supported to use this curricula well?
So the hope would be that if this is recommended for adoption, that in the next week or two, we would have a one-day training for the teachers, because when we did the pilot, that material is still up and available to their teachers, and they're actually still in there and using it. And so it would be a day training to get them fully on board, because not everybody piloted this particular one, and be able to use it and begin modifying it so they can work with it over the summer. And then there's just a couple of days of training that we would use next year to get the teachers what they need and being able to build their units and create a scope and sequence and common assessments.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, I appreciate you all taking the time to and also discuss the reason for the postponement as well, to highlight that in the packet as well. We have to do one at a time for the actions. And so the first one is the grades 6 through 8 science curriculum adoption. I guess we were on that one right now, so I jumped ahead with my second comment. We'll just pretend like I made it later, but.
I have a motion.
Sammy?
I move to adopt.
Your mic went out.
I move to adopt style education middle school science curriculum.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Sammy and seconded by Sarah. Any further discussion?
Quick discussion. I looked up grade 8, and there's a lesson on evolution. And if I'm not mistaken, it says, are we responsible for the rise of the superbugs? So I'm very intrigued and curious and looking forward to see how students benefit from that. Thank you.
We'll be sure to invite you in to help us out.
I'm in.
Okay. What's that?
I too would like to see how we're going to try to encourage more non-males to be more involved in science. When Judah and I visited the Sheldon program. I think it was the STEM class that we walked in. That was amazing. That was mostly males in there, and it was very noticeable that, so it would be great to see how we can do that, and would love to be part of that.
With no further discussion, it has been moved by Sammy and seconded by Sarah to adopt style education as the middle school science curriculum. Sarah?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Shauna?
Aye.
Therese?
Aye.
Judah?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so that passed unanimously. And the next item is the K through 5 and 9-12 science curriculum.
Hi, so you have our report as well. We do not have a presentation, but we are here for all of your questions.
Sammy?
Does this, I'm drawing on a blank, chapter 22 or section 22, does this become, division 22, thank you. Does this entail in compliance of the division 22 that we need to rectify within 1 year or not?
We have 2 years before we have to install materials, and we will have to submit approval of postponement to ODE in the interim.
And if they approve it, we are in compliance. Mm-hmm. Perfect, thank you.
Other questions? Shauna?
So in the report, and thank you for that, putting all that information together for us, there's a line that says, it's under winter 2023, several teachers responded that their current adopted and supplemental materials are better than the new materials on the approved ODE lists. And I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit more about that in terms of when we're postponing, are there things coming up for teachers that they're saying, we would rather not be adopting these materials? And is this something that's just sort of being pushed down until it does need to be adopted?
So the last science adoption, I think it was 7 years ago, we did middle and high school, and I was here for that adoption. When we reviewed, so I had teachers begin actually reviewing standards last year, and then ODE published their approved list in October, and they immediately started reviewing that. I think they were thinking with new standards that materials at the high school would look a lot different, and that wasn't what they found. So what they found was this looks very similar to what I'm already using, and so when we we're working within our budget and trying to really preserve staffing and reduce things that we purchase. You know, I went down into that winter 2023, like nice to have, or I absolutely need to have, and they were like, I don't need this. It's not an improvement on the materials I have from 7 years ago. The 2 exceptions are in there, AP Chemistry, and so I am working with those teachers on purchasing those materials, and then the other one is Environmental Science, and that teacher and I where we were actually in communication today and talking about the possibility of open source materials. Really the ODE list at the high school level is just those core subjects of biology, chemistry, and physics, and courses beyond like AP, those lists actually come from the College Board. Environmental science, similar to what you were asking about before, is a changing field, and that is where the teacher that's been in conversation with me says, I feel like that what I have is out of date, and so now we're kind of looking at some other options that aren't costly.
Thanks for that clarification.
Other questions? Sarah, you look like you have a question.
I just want to say thank you for taking that into consideration, because that is changing all the time. And our students are aware of that. And so if we want to keep students engaged, if we have the whole real world learning and having curriculum that reflects the world they see around them is really important. So I'm glad that's part of the consideration.
Yeah. I think I would just
Especially for
add,
that class.
I would add a little bit like tangential, but I have been working kind of like the champion of that relevant and engaging learning, and I've been meeting with students about eco-literacy and sustainability and environmental stewardship, and I am getting a lot of feedback from students about what they need to learn in those areas from high school, because we're looking at how are we going to assess how we're growing K-12, and they have a lot to say just about like the initial data and what they think we'll get and their needs for learning in those areas.
Other questions? Well, how much was the savings again on the curriculum?
I don't think we even got to that point, but
Okay.
Easily 100,000.
Okay, that's great, thank you. I think it's important for the community to know, like, it's not just about postponing it, it's about like conserving some of the funds.
Yeah, a high school science adoption, I think, usually is around $300,000.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no more questions, is there a motion?
I move to postpone adoption of, can I do it together, elementary and high school science materials?
It's the pack.
I move to postpone adoption of elementary and high school science materials.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Chris and seconded by Shauna. Is any further discussion? Okay. It has been moved by Chris and seconded by Shauna to postpone adoption of elementary and high school science materials. Sarah?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Shauna?
Aye.
Therese?
Aye.
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you for your work on that. And next, so we have new curriculum adoption and also postponement of curriculum adoption. Next on the agenda is grades 9, 12 math curriculum adoption. Nikki and Jen.
All right, so similar to the last adoption and postponement, you have the report, and we're here to answer your questions.
Questions? Sammy or Vibhav and Sammy?
Well, it is a relevant question, but it have to be stated since it's salient to the community. We are adopting, or we are about to consider the adoption of math curriculum, Algebra 2, and Honors Algebra 2. Could you speak to where we are as a district today with this curriculum? Is access to those courses changing, being more limited or more accessible, or the same based on this new curriculum? Are there any prerequisites that students have to take those classes that are going to change, or is it the same?
I think the best answer is found in the published course catalogs for both of the high schools. They have flowcharts for all of the math pathways. As far as prerequisites, they're very similar to what they were before. So coming into an Algebra 2 course, you're going to be coming out of your second Core 2 class, which is your Geometry Data Reasoning or your Honors Geometry Data Reasoning. And coming into an Honors Algebra 2 class, that's coming out of the Honors Geometry Data Reasoning course, which is very similar to what it was before. And then, did you also want me to talk to the pre-calculus at this point? All right, so pre-calculus.
Those are two separate ones, though. Yeah, they're on the agenda. Sorry.
That's fine. That's why I asked.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions on Algebra 2 and Honors Algebra 2? Oh, yeah, Vibhav, sorry. Yes.
So I had two questions on, or just one question, sorry, on two sections of this report, mainly the student feedback and the community feedback section. These will seem like pretty elementary questions. I'm just seeing this I've just seen this pretty briefly, but could you just talk about just really about like how many students were, gave feedback about this new material, as well as, again, the data set of community feedback, and how many community members, and also the teacher involvement.
All right, so I will get us started, and then Nikki can jump in if there's more. So starting with the student feedback at Corvallis High School, the one teacher in particular took the lead in piloting it, and so piloted both of the teacher's top 2 choices in her classroom on in the quadratics unit. And so all of the students in, I believe, 3 sections of Algebra 2, so that's between 60 and 80, 60 and 70 students, 70 to 90 students, okay. You've got more updated class numbers. Had lessons from both of the top 2 runners of the curriculum and gave feedback on the differences between those 2 curriculums and their preferences. On the community feedback, there was a survey. Community had access to the curriculum for 2 weeks, and we had 5 community members respond to that survey, so it's a pretty small N size on the community feedback. And on the teachers, so we postponed the +1 adoption, so those are all of the courses after geometry and data reasoning a year. So the teachers had access to the ODE state approved list starting last fall, and looked at that and said, we've got a lot going on, so we're gonna wait for a year so we can make a really informed decision on this. And then they began meeting in committees at the individual sites in the fall, and then had a couple of meetings where all of the Algebra 2 teachers came together to review what their schools had, the teachers at their schools had looked at individually, and then they moved forward with the pilots with the students to get student feedback on that.
Oh, you turned your mic off. There you go.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, thank you so much. Did anyone else have any questions? Because I might
You have, if you have a follow-up question,
okay,
go ahead.
Perfect. So my follow-up question was, first of all, thank you so much. And second of all, I kind of wanted to speak to really how is this curriculum going to be used? Like, I can attest myself as a student in pre-calculus. My main way of learning is through the teacher, like writing on the smart board, and usually it's only the homework that we do from the book. So I kind of want to see, like, where do we see the future of this curriculum being used? Are we seeing students actually learning from the literal textbook, reading from it, just generally on the usage of it? Thank you.
All right, so I think similar to, we were looking at trying to save as much cost as possible. So we went through a number of different, what's your best case scenario? What can we do to save some money? And the most recent quote we had has a class set of books in the library. So there's 20 books at each site, and all students have digital access to the full textbook, as well as other resources like videos that are provided in the digital access. And that reduced cost by about almost a half, between a third and a half. So we're looking at students having digital interaction with the textbook, where there are physical textbooks in the libraries for students who need them or families who want them, but to significantly save costs, because we were seeing similar things. The teachers were reporting very few students are using the physical textbook anymore, and most of them are accessing it digitally. So I'm not sure if that fully answered your question. But.
I think I would just add to that when I was at CV, working as an assistant principal, access to the online math materials was something the teachers were requesting, and at that time we didn't have funding to provide that access annually. Now when we purchase for the entire adoption period. So I know that they were requesting it and kind of digging around for old things that they could use. What I notice is that when teachers make a request for materials, they're going to use them. There are other adoptions where there's less buy-in, where there's a lot more staff, and that's a heavier lift in terms of the implementation.
Yeah, thank you so much. A little bit about, like you said, there's going to be digital usage and digital access. Like, is there like any information of like if students will actually want to use like digital access to certain things? Like, we have like certain classes and curriculum that have digital things, but I just want to know if students would really want that that kind of thing, or is there any information behind that?
Yeah, I don't think that was a question that we asked students. I mean, I think it's really in asking the teachers, it's what, you know, what is the delivery model that you prefer for planning your lessons?
And I would add there's, in buying a digital license for every student, there's a copyright aspect to that. So as the teacher, if the teacher is posting homework from the book on Canvas, the students need to have access. We need to have purchased access to that for the students. So there's that consideration as well, making sure we're in compliance with copyright.
Yeah, Shauna.
Just in a follow-up to Vivek's question, did the students pilot the digital copies, or were they piloting hard copies? Because maybe that would help answer your question a little bit in terms of at least that opportunity.
They had access to both. So they had a class, less than a class set, but they had access to the physical books in the classroom and digital access during the pilot.
And you said they would have access to a physical book too, right? Yeah, okay. I thought so. Just wanted to make sure that was clear for community too, for accessibility.
Yes, so I will answer into the microphone. They will have access to a physical copy of the book, but we will not be checking out a copy of the book to every student at the beginning of the term.
Yep, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Shauna has one more question.
I'll ask the same question that I asked earlier, just in terms of, are there any concerns of shortfalls with this curriculum, or any concerns that came up for folks or needs for support?
So one of the things that the teachers put as a benefit of this curriculum was that it had review and refresh sections, as well as a prepare section at the beginning of the units to bring students who have missed pieces or have lost pieces along the way to get them ready for the unit. They saw that as a huge strength of this curriculum that a number of the other curriculums did not have. So they were excited about that. And they also had modeling throughout the curriculum. So I see those as big strengths. I think a piece that we're going to need to work on internally as a district is our vertical alignment from our K-8 curriculum into our high school curriculum, as the high school curriculum is a more traditional curriculum and our K-8 curriculum is a lot more student-centered. So that's a piece that we're going to need to bring forward, bring out more of the student-centered aspects of this curriculum. They are there, but bringing them to the forefront will be work that we'll be doing.
Sarah?
Yeah, as this whole discussion comes out, it's formed a question. So when Vibha was asking about how students would interact with the textbook, what I was thinking was, currently they're getting lectures on the whiteboard and then they go to the textbook just for their homework problems. But it sounds like this curriculum, teachers anticipate actually using it's not a textbook, it's a digital copy, but using the curriculum more as part of the teaching rather than just as a source of homework. Is that sort of what they're feeling like so that it feels like, what you're saying is it feels like a more usable actual curriculum?
Yes, they did identify a number of different places in the curriculum. One of them that they pulled out was having effective real-life applications, so they wouldn't have to create those on their own, which is very time-consuming, but having that aspect that they can pull out of the curriculum, as well as the modeling. In the older curriculums, they just had some examples and a lot of problems, right? So if you wanted to pull modeling, and that's something that you had to create with your PLC and bring into the curriculum, and this curriculum already has that they can pull out and build upon. So it's not perfect. Like, no curriculum is perfect, right? But it has some of these aspects that they believe are going to lower the amount of work that they have to do, so that they can spend more time on gearing it to their specific students.
I just wanted to do a time check because we have 7 minutes left in this discussion and we have the pre-calculus curriculum as well. So just wanted to point that out. So maybe one more question.
My one last question was, like regarding like the usage of this new curriculum by teachers. How do you see this impacting like teachers' freedom in the way that they teach and their style of teaching?
I think the purchase of these materials is not going to change the freedom that they have in teaching. This is not a scripted or canned curriculum, so it relies upon the expertise of the teachers to deliver to their students in the way that they know is going to resonate with the students that are in front of them.
Any other questions? Okay, I said one more question, then I asked if there was more questions. Does anybody have any motions they would like to make? Or did you have a,
move.
Oh, I did, oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I move to adopt Big Ideas for High School Algebra 2 as the Algebra 2 and Honors Algebra 2 mathematics curriculum.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Sarah and seconded by Judah. Any further discussion? I just wanted to say like how this operates using the online book and even the hard copy book as part of the learning and teaching kind of reminds me of how some of the classes are taught in higher ed too, and thinking about how that's important to the community with the math and preparing for for students who are going into higher ed. It reminds me a lot of how they're being taught now. So I just wanted to point that out, that connection too. So any other further discussion besides my comment? Okay. It has been moved by Sarah and seconded by Judah to adopt Big Ideas for High School Algebra 2 as the Algebra 2 and Honors Algebra 2 mathematics curriculum. Sarah?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Shauna?
Aye.
Therese?
Aye.
Judah?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
Vote aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. And next is pre-calculus. Is there any discussion on the pre-calculus? Sammy, you had a question, that's right.
The same question from the past conversation around pathways and access, if there's any changes.
So there is a change with pre-calculus. It's not around access, but Crescent Valley is going to be offering a new class, AP pre-calculus, fall of 24-25. We're excited to have that additional pre-calculus class. That's one that students who take 8th grade math in 8th grade will be able to access without doubling up on any courses, and is a great pathway to a number of STEM fields and forestry at OSU, in fact. So with that, AP pre-calculus covers Math 111 and Math 112, and pre-calculus covers Math 111. Those are college credit courses. So the pre-calculus classes needed to align with the Math 111 college outcomes, and that was one of the things that they were looking at as they were reviewing curriculum for both of those courses. So that's kind of a side note. In the access, the same prerequisite courses exist to get into those classes, Algebra 2 or Honors Algebra 2, to get into a pre-calculus class at both of the schools.
So as a follow-up question, because you got me now more curious about if this pre-calc curriculum is adopted, students, do they have pathway to fulfill, and excuse me, the numbers, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to relate to the numbers to the outcomes, so I'm going to share the outcomes if that's okay. Are they going to be able to go through calculus and understand differentiation, integration, and or differential equations, either any or all of them?
So pre-calculus sets up the foundation for that. Differential calculus, which is Math 251, is a class that follows pre-calculus, gets into differentiation, and integration is in AP calculus, which also follows honors pre-calculus, or AP pre-calculus would get you into the classes where they're covering those outcomes. Math 111 and Math 112. Math 111 used to be called college algebra, and it's now pre-calculus functions, and Math 112 is pre-calculus trigonometry. So those outcomes are what's in the 111, 112, and then the differentiation and integration are covered more fully in the next class, differential calculus or AP calculus.
And does the duration of this pre-calculus, is it the same duration, one trimester?
Pre-calculus is a year-long course.
Year-long.
And it is the same, the duration of the course is the same as it was before.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Questions? Vibhav?
I will preview this question by saying that for some reason or what, our community seems to love AP Calculus BC. We have some sort of an attachment to it. So I wanted to ask you, and I just wanted a straightforward answer because this is a conversation that I've had for a little while now. So specifically talking about AP Calculus, and I do not want to know about how many college credits it's going to offer, simply speaking about the rigor of the class compared to the status quo of honors pre-calculus, could you answer how that's going to change?
So the AP pre-calculus class is going to meet national board standards around what AP pre-calculus needs to cover. So it more fully covers Math 111 and all of Math 112. And the honors pre-calculus course still prepares students for AB calculus, and students who get to where they are ready for BC calculus will continue to have the option to take BC calculus in our school district. I'm not sure if that answers your question, so.
I kind of specifically wanted to know about like the honors pre-calculus course that we have been offering at CV for the past decade or so, and how the rigor of that class, since it prepares students to take AP Calculus BC, is compared to AP Pre-Calculus, which, as said by the College Board, prepares students to take AP Calculus AB.
Can you hold on for a second? Kim, can you put like 2 minutes on there? We'll extend it by 2 minutes so you can answer and see if we have any final questions.
So I cannot answer that question at this point because we have not yet taught AP Pre-Calculus. That's a new course this year, and so I don't want to make assumptions about the rigor, but I will definitely follow up with the teacher because it's going to be taught by the same teacher who taught honors pre-calculus after he's taught the AP pre-calculus about how the rigor of those two courses compares. I know, so rigor is defined in a couple of different ways. There's rigor with the complexity of the tasks that are put in front of students, and then there's also rigor in the subject matter. So the complexity of the task that's put in front of students is going to stay at the same level. The subject matter, my understanding is that BC Calculus covers everything in AB Calculus as well as one more course, 253. So if you are ready to go into BC Calculus, you would also be ready, or if you're ready to go into AB Calculus, you would also be ready to go into BC Calculus because they have the same starting point. BC Calculus must move faster to get through more content.
Okay, sorry, last question. So from my understanding of how math is currently and how it's been working in the status quo is that honors pre-calculus covers a little bit of AP Calculus. For example, today I already learned about derivatives, which is not a thing that is usually taught in a normal pre-calculus class before entering calculus. So the entire point of honors pre-calculus right now is meant to not be so, fast forwarded next year when students do take BC calculus. So my question is, like, I understand that both of them will be ready to take BC calculus, but simply looking at like the difficulty and the amount of information that will be taught, will it be increased or decreased with AP pre-calculus?
So the complexity of the questions will be the same, the amount of content covered will be less.
Sarah, did you have a question or was your mic just on mute?
Oh, I didn't realize my mic was on, but I will tell you that the Math 112 meets the math requirement for a number of College of Ag majors. It's not just forestry. So I think it's important for our community to know that that math class, this AP pre-calculus math class will meet requirements for a lot of majors at OSU without ever having to take AP calculus.
Okay.
And while it's not part of the adoption, we bought all new materials for AP Pre-Calc because it is a brand new course. We were able to fund that with high school success money because when we expand our college level opportunities, we can use that funding for that purpose.
We are running short on time for this conversation, and we still need to make a motion.
I'm here for a motion. Are we ready?
You're here for a motion?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I move to adopt Blitzer Pre-Calculus by Savas as the pre-calculus curriculum.
Second.
Has been moved by Judah and seconded by Sammy. Any further discussion? I was saving mine because it was a comment, not a question, and it was about the Math 111 and 112 equivalencies. It's part of the new universal for higher ed numbering, so it counts at any of the 4 years for 111 and 112 because that's a new thing that Oregon passed. So that's not just at OSU, so it's beyond that for students who are planning on going to other places. So that's great. Okay, Sarah?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Shauna?
Aye.
Therese?
Aye.
Judah?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
And I vote aye, passes unanimously. So that's good news, new math. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. We have consolidated action next on the agenda. As a reminder, the items under this portion of the agenda are for action. Does anyone have a question about anything in consolidated action? Does anyone wish to make a motion?
I move to approve consolidated action as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved by Sammy and seconded by Therese. Is there any final discussion on consolidated action? Okay. It has been moved by Sammy and seconded by Therese to adopt the consolidated action items as submitted. Sarah?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Shauna?
Aye.
Therese?
Aye.
Judah?
Aye.
Sammy?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is consolidated information. As a reminder, the items under this portion of the agenda are for discussion. Would anyone like to discuss an item? Judah, I see you already have your mic unmuted.
And I have notes. Everyone should be afraid.
Okay,
I
okay.
would like to pull everything under 12B board policies.
Okay. So that covers it for everyone then probably, unless anybody would like to pull the financials.
Looks good to me.
Cool. Okay. Go ahead, Judah. Take it away.
I
You
don't
want to go one at a
hog
time?
discussion, but I've got, yeah, do you want to, can we start with JFCF?
JFCF, yes. So if anybody else is planning on chatting on that one, pull up your notes. And go ahead, Judah, you can start.
I actually preferred the old language on page 2 before we changed student staff, third parties may be referred to law enforcement when violations of this policy extend to violations of the Oregon revised statute, or to change that to when appropriate, because I feel like that's a little bit too much of a burden to be saying, oh, now we have a belief that it's a specific ORS. That was a minor one.
So that was in direct, like, I think it was Sarah said, we need to know when is law enforcement being called. So that's why I added that in there, so the suggestion is to remove that.
Well, we can diverge on opinions and we can talk about that more, because that was just a minor thing.
That was, okay.
Page 3-6, starting at the change from domestic to family violence, what I had hoped to get across is that we're also changing the definition of what we had written down. And so I had a suggestion for language, and I can explain why. So first, I'll just read it through and explain why. That family violence means of use between family and or household members as those terms described in ORS, and I want to change this and explain why, 135-230, and the following persons, parents, step-parents, siblings, step-siblings, or any other cohabitating persons self-described as a family unit. The reason why I want to do that is 107705 is specifically the Family Abuse Prevention Act statute. And as I don't want to belabor the point, but first, none of these apply to children or treat children as autonomous individuals, so it directly does not apply to children.
Okay.
It has a very limited definition of family, particularly in 107705. It also limits the types of previous relationships that could qualify for kinds of protections or observations. If you go to 135-230, subsection 4, definition of family, it says just persons who have cohabitated with each other, who have been involved in a sexually intimate relationship without a 2-year time period, or that previous statute technically requires some people to be petitioners in a case to qualify. So to say, all right, we've got this definition, and we're also, because that's the floor that we have to go on, is the statutory floor. So why not use the more inclusive statutory floor, and making it so that parental violence on children, or step-parent violence on children, sibling violence against each other is still considered in the definition of family violence, and understanding that we have a lot of different types of self-identified family structures. So that's why I added another cohabitating person self-described as a family unit. And my notes are terrible, but you can have them at the end.
Can you send them to me? Thank you.
I'll type them up and send them to you.
Okay.
My handwriting's awful. Then, should I stop? Because I've got the next one. Protected class. So to change that word to protected class includes the Oregon Department of Education definition of persons distinguished or perceived to be distinguished by race, color, religion, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin. That's all the same. But then changing a little bit at the beginning so you can add at the end, for purposes of this policy JFCF, this protected class also includes persons targeted for physical characteristics.
I was having a hard time finding where to put that, so thank you. I appreciate that.
And that would limit that definition. Instead of saying the district is identifying this as a generally protected class, that we're specifically saying that persons targeted for physical characteristics for bullying, as I mentioned before, that individuals most likely to be bullied are individuals bullied for their weight. And we want to make sure that that is not permissible and explicit. Okay. Oh, and that's it for that one, for me.
And you're going to send those things to me?
Yeah.
Does anyone
Type,
else?
so I can read them.
Does anyone else have any on this? Sammy?
Yeah, I do, and I just want to make sure the sentiment is shared with my colleague on my notes. So I'm going to frame it as a comment and a question for the board. Is the change proposed here is from domestic to family, and the previous comment highlighted that's the family under the ORS definition limited to the end.
Your mic's going out again.
Is this better?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think you're too far away.
So the current proposal of the language goes from domestic, striking domestic, and adds family. And the current understanding that's the family definition under ORS is limited than the scope that we would like to capture. So my question is our intention is to capture what's domestic, family, and other elements are not captured. So does that mean family, comma, domestic, comma, other things that are not captured by both in the ORS?
I don't want to go too long on this because I can go full nerd. My intention there was to capture that there are more family units, and those statutes, the problem with the ORS is when we're looking for definitions, it's specific to adults who are now or who have been in a sexually intimate relationship, and that there isn't a really good broad definition of family. So when we're going and we're looking at domestic violence, that's what the intention is, but instead to broaden the scope to say it's not just intimate partner violence, that we're talking about violence that can occur in the family and that being not acceptable, and also capturing us recognizing children as people.
Okay. Did that help answer the question? You look
It
like
does answer
maybe.
the question, and I'll leave it to staff and probably my colleague to figure out the language, but I'm in agreement that we would need to capture what was just mentioned, and to my understanding, probably domestic comma family is not going to capture it. There might be some addition of definitions that will be school district specific, if I understand that correctly.
Okay.
And I'm in agreement with it, and with the intention of it. It's going to be hard work, but it's definitely necessary.
Any other comments on JFCF? Shauna?
Thank you. So on the second page, at the top, where we have students whose behaviors found to be in violation, and then staff whose behavior is found to be in violation, and then third parties. And I'm curious about the board in terms of accountability for the school board. We hope that these behaviors would never come out of school board members or others. Do we fit within the definition of third parties, or do we need to actually name school board, or, okay?
I think you would have to be called out separately. Yeah. So that's
So
a question to the board, if that's additional language they want to add.
Is that what you're suggesting, to add
So
that?
then I would suggest that. I'm looking at other members of the school board, but just in terms of also holding one another as colleagues accountable for these same behaviors that we're holding students as well as staff and anyone else who's involved in the district.
I think, so this is about students. We have
Right.
another policy that's about the adults. So I'm wondering if that's a more appropriate place for your addition.
Sure, and that would be fine. And I think the question that came up for me was, since staff were called out here,
right,
that drew my attention to the adults.
And I think it's here because it's about staff hazing, harassing, menacing students. So when I looked at the staff, it's more of a staff-to-staff kind of situation. So you could be in both places, because you shouldn't harass students and you shouldn't harass each other. So I can see that addition could be in both places.
That might be good to add, since board members are mentors to board representatives, student board representatives now. Sammy, did you have a reply to?
To that point, I agree, and also that might open the door that we need to specify the recourse to report those for the board according to, I believe there is a policy that speaks about complaints against board members, so that will be a delineation, because it's not going to be the standard process, unfortunately, since we're the highest level of power or authority in the district.
That was going to be my question, is who Melissa needs to put there for that, so. Because it's not, it's nobody in the district.
Yeah.
Policy KL.
Policy KL should have similar language.
Yep. Perfect.
Any other questions, comments about this one? I did want to agree with your specificity on the language. I understand that because of the work I do in advocacy with violence against Indigenous people, and like when you use specific terms, it creates loopholes really easy, because then people aren't captured, and so calling that out is really important. It could have really dangerous repercussions if we have a lot of loopholes we didn't mean to have. And I was agreeing. I wanted to go back to the comment that Judah made on page 2. When violation of this policy extend to violation of Oregon revised statutes, that's like so broad. It feels like really broad, because there's so many revised, so in violation of Oregon revised statutes. So it's like, what is being called? Is it like a violent crime? Is it like interpersonal?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think it's just too broad. There's so many.
So what I heard from Judah is go back to what it was before, which would be the period after officials. Students, staff, or third parties may be referred to law enforcement officials, period. And so that doesn't answer your question, which is when do we call law enforcement?
I can't hear you.
It's green. I don't understand.
I think it's because we've been on a meeting longer than I
Yeah.
usually run them.
That came from conversations I had with staff members who were concerned when something happened.
Right.
When does it get taken to that level?
Right.
And so I think what they were looking for was like where something more, but I agree that this is not satisfactory. But I also think the old version doesn't answer that concern that I was hearing from staff, so I don't know.
It doesn't answer it here, but when we, in our district behavior guidelines, which is what our administrators and deans use to take a look at the behavior and align a consequence to it, there is specificity there.
Can we cite that somehow in the policy?
I kind of don't want to, because this is bigger than that. So the DBG, the district behavior guidelines, are based on policy. So I don't want to cite it there. So I'm struggling with that ask.
Okay. I'm trying to think of how to help you, Melissa.
It's okay.
Well, even in the district behavior guidelines, those are shared. If they're even in the contract where you're supposed to share about those every year with staff. So that shows up in the contract language more than it does in policy.
It's also in the student parent handbook.
Okay. I wanted to call attention to time, and we are 6 minutes past when we're supposed to end the meeting, and I'm curious from the board how much longer you feel we should extend our conversations, knowing that we have a lot of comment on so I can tell Kim how much to put on the timer. What do you think, Judah?
So, I mean, I have no comment on the next two policies, just the deletion them being moved, but then I have a lot of comments. I probably have 10 minutes of talking.
Okay. And that's not counting so 20 minutes then? Okay, can you put 20 minutes? Because it's about to expire. I'm thinking about staff too, so I want to make sure we don't keep you all here till midnight. Okay, so no more comments on JFCF. Did you have what was your next one?
So, not about the deletions, and then it would go to JFC. And then I was thinking JFC and JG kind of at the same time, and I have a lot more on JG.
Are you looking at the AR too? Because you pulled that as well.
So, because those other ones are just saying, hey, we're going to delete these and we're going to move those sections, and then there's additions.
Do you want to start with that then? Do you want to start with the AR since it's listed first?
Yeah, but then that becomes just JFC, not JFC AR, I think.
Well, yeah, okay. So there's JFC/JG is the next on the thing. Let's just go in order so we don't get confused.
So that is the student discipline? Okay.
The combined or the separated? So do you have questions about the deletion of the combined JFC-JG?
Okay, that's what I'm asking you,
You're
Judah,
right.
because you pulled everything.
Yeah, instead of saying everything all at once, I don't have
I
questions
think you
about
got
either
really
of those.
excited.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're skipping the combined JFC-JG then?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So the next one is JFC-AR is next on the list. So that's what it's saying. Do you have questions on the AR?
No.
Okay.
So we're skipping the AR as well. Does anybody else have questions since it got pulled? Or comments on the AR? Okay, so JFC is next.
So, I mean, overall, I don't have a lot of questions about the student conduct code. Like, it's pretty clear, and a lot of this is governed by statute. So it's like, that is statutory language, and that's in there. I am wondering if the policy on student conduct couldn't build in a little bit more of, I'm going to reference another statute, well, it's the juvenile, how the juvenile code is defined and saying that we are building to be supportive and to keep students, and maybe we should, we could like have a meeting, because I don't have like a lot of great words on this one, that essentially this is to keep students in the school community safe and appropriate, and that we are, my brain is now shutting down, sorry guys, that we are building this policy and building behavioral interventions based on individual needs with the least restrictive, least punitive actions taken whenever we can and going up from there. So I'm wondering if there's more of a statement of intent. I was more looking at the first just 3 paragraphs there to see if there's a different way we can build on the idea of how we are thinking about student conduct, because the Oregon Revised Statutes are like incredibly clear on which types of classified crimes certain actions must be taken.
Yeah.
It is, you got the list captured, but that preamble portion. And I'd be happy to meet separately when I've written something better out than the 2 sentences I wrote on that one.
Judah, are you, okay, let me try to recap what you just said. Are you saying that you'd like to see more supportive language in the first 3 paragraphs? I was a little bit confused where we were going with this.
So the way that I read the kind of preamble to the general student conduct, it places a lot of onus on following written rules, adhering to authority. While we do want the school climate to be a clear and consistent, have clear and consistent behavioral expectations, there isn't a lot of attention to what the student code is really about and what we're hoping to do with it. And it's just, hey, we're here, when I'm reading this is like, it's really important to follow the rules so school goes good. And to have a lot more intentionality put into that preamble language, because what I'm specifically trying to do overall is gear the student policies on conduct and behavior and discipline as far away from the school to prison pipeline as we possibly can. And there's not a lot to mess with there, like go around with, because like I said, most of it's statute, but to develop a kind of preamble language about the intent when we have options. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the intent of if something happens?
Yes.
Okay.
And the intent of the code of conduct, period. Not just, hey, these things are important, follow rules, but to build a structure about what the code of conduct, the purpose is, and the intention is.
Okay.
And I have very clear notes on the next section, just to peace of mind.
Does anybody else have thoughts or questions about this one? Either.
I do have one, and not necessarily here, but as we saw in point 6, the cross-reference to JFCJ, I believe that's the right reference for it, but that got me to realize that we might have 2 policies that need to cross-reference and make sure that there's clarity around alignments between them, and I think they are. So the ones are the one that's been referenced here, JFCJ, weapons in schools, and I believe this is student specific. The other one is the one that the board passed recently in 22, KGBB, firearms prohibited, which I believe is a general umbrella that includes no person shall. So my understanding is we are on the right track by only specifying JFCJ. So I want to just highlight, I'll ask the question, should we reference KGBB, or is that sufficient? And maybe for a future agenda item, just making sure JFCJ and KGBB are properly cross-referencing each other if needed.
Are you saying JFCJG? That's what we're losing. We're trying to. When you're saying JFC, are you saying JFCF, the hazing harassment policy?
No, JFCJ, weapons in schools, which is the one referenced in the policy as number 6, bringing, possessing, concealing, or using a weapon.
JFCJ, got it, okay.
Yep.
All right. So it's there, but it's not here in the policy references? Or you would like to add KGBB as a policy reference in addition to JFCJ?
If you think that's relevant. I think JFCJ
So I'm going to check that, okay.
Student-specific, KGBB is
Community.
overarching.
Yeah.
And makes me actually wonder if there's any conflict, ever any reconciliation that we need to do between both.
Okay.
And if not, yeah, and basically, based
Okay.
on that, we need to find out if this policy needs to only reference one or both, if that makes sense.
Okay.
You look
Okay.
excited, Melissa.
I'm sorry?
You look excited. This
I'm
is
so
a lot
excited.
of, there's so many J's and
I know.
crosses.
I was
and
like, JFCJ.
There's actually a lot of policies referenced in here.
Yeah.
To Sammy's point, if they haven't been like double checked and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other comments on this one? I did want to appreciate Judah's trying not to create this pattern that is present in society of criminalizing young people to an extent of where it doesn't need to be. And I want to make sure that we don't miss when stuff happens, that it does need to get called out, and how does that look? And I know there's a lot of bullying still present in our district, and some of it is bordering getting into some areas that might be violating policies in this one. And so I want to make sure that we don't make people who are experiencing feel like they don't matter, because that's really important from somebody that supports survivors and from multiple contexts, that they are not feeling like that they don't matter. I don't know how else to say it besides that. And so there's a little bit of both going on in personal experiences of supporting people on both sides of it. And so that's where I'm like, it's really complicated, and in some ways it's also not complicated at all. Good.
So I'm wondering if we need to bring this policy back based on where we are right now and with the language that Judah wanted to bring forward. It doesn't feel like we're going to, I think that's going to be necessary. So that's my only addition right now.
I don't think it's going to be ready for second read for adoption.
And that's fine. I brought it forward because it's connected to JFCF.
Yeah.
And we had talked about it, so I thought maybe this would be, but
Yeah.
it's totally fine. We need to take our time and take a look at it. I
Yeah.
feel like JFCF's in a different place because we had a full meeting to really look
Right.
at it, but I think this policy, and then I guess JG as well, would be ones that we need to bring back for first read again.
Is this policy one that we would want to get student feedback on?
Possibly, yeah, I would imagine, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that might be, I feel like that's important. I'm not going to say I think, I'm going to use the words properly.
Yeah.
I feel like that'd be important with this one.
So what I'm thinking then with timing, honestly, is we're not going to see this again until the fall.
Probably.
Yeah, I won't be able to get in front of students and make sure all of that, because like, it took me a long time with the other policy, so, yeah.
I think is that a concern, Sammy?
It's a question. Is this one that we need to take our time and operationally and with the objectives that we want to achieve, we're going to be okay taking our time, and compliance-wise we're going to be okay? Or should we not have that perfect be enemy of the good and have an interim policy that we adopt with the commitments that
Don't we already have a policy
We have
that's
an
already
interim.
struck out, but we would just pause that until this gets
Right.
resolved, right?
Right, nobody, you didn't vote to delete those two policies.
No.
It was just a first read, so they stay in place as they are.
And if they stay in their place as they are, we're not going to be out of compliance
No.
with any ORSs?
No, we're not.
Perfect.
Okay.
These were pulled, I think, on my request, so thank you very much.
And then JG is the last one.
Everybody okay if I just kind of read through with changes? I've got some changes noted.
Yeah,
Okay. Discipline in the district is based upon a philosophy designed to support positive behavioral changes that will enable students to develop skills necessary to remain in school and function successfully in their educational and social environment. Student discipline aims to support students in learning these necessary skills to participate in a positive school climate and avoid disruptive behavior. The major objective of the district discipline program is to teach an understanding of the law, board policies, administrative regulations, and school rules with a focus on individual rights, dignity, and safety. The board seeks to ensure a school climate which is appropriate for I'll just skip to the end. So the sentence I changed is, the superintendent will develop administrative regulations whereby those students who disrupt, and I want to kind of work on that language a little bit, an educational setting who endanger the safety of others will be offered interventions to modify student misconduct and reduce challenging behaviors that are, and then I put age appropriate, use approaches that are shown through research to be effective and are targeted to individual need when possible. Behavioral interventions will be implemented in the least disruptive manner to educational growth as is practicable. That next paragraph, the only change I wanted to note is that LGBTQ is not our inclusive definition, so just to make that inclusive. Then the district recognizes that an unconscious bias can impact disciplinary decision-making and seek to eliminate disparities in school discipline and disparate representation and discipline referrals. The district will regularly review disciplinary policies and their utilization to reduce this known disparity to the greatest possible degree.
Any other comments on this one? Oh, that was way faster on that one, I guess. Did you have more on that one? It's a short.
That's all the notes that I had.
Yeah.
So I just read through with all the notes
Okay, and just
that I can write down and send.
any other? This is another one where I think we need to just be careful on not invalidating the experiences of people who have been harmed by other students. Because that happens already in the district, and I don't want to see it like disproportionately end up where people are victims and survivors of interpersonal violence in some form. Usually it's gendered, and usually it's race who is not supported, and I want to make sure that that doesn't get exacerbated, like it doesn't get amplified by any of our policy decisions. So it'd be worth considering like how we want to make sure that doesn't happen. I don't know how we would put that in there, but again, I'm always on the advocacy side of things just in general, so I know my comments are very heavy leaning on that one. So I want to just be really transparent about that with my comments. And also support students, especially younger students, not developing behaviors that turn out to be Measure 11 crimes later in life or other things like that, once they're out of our school systems. Any other comments, questions?
I have a comment. So I feel like I brought this up a couple years ago when we were just coming out of the pandemic, but at some point I would like to see data on our discipline and to have an understanding of who is being disciplined in our school district, so that we can see if we're avoiding bias or if we need more work there.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. I think it's come up also recently when the schools were here, and we were asking a lot of questions about how are we making sure that we're not over-implementing even non-punitive behavioral modification, because even that action produces long-term poor outcomes. So thank you, I really, second.
Thanks for reminding us of that, Sarah, because I remember asking for that at some point too. I don't remember when, but I remember, and yeah, thank you. Shauna?
So just in reflecting on some of the language, both in this as well as in student conduct in the one we just looked at, a question that comes up just relates to what you brought up, and Judah, that I really appreciated in terms of the language that we use even in setting up these policies, and wondering if there is opportunity, or I guess we don't have to wonder, we could make opportunity to think about teachers who are using different social and emotional learning curricula in the district and looking at how does the language that we're using to talk about conduct and discipline align with those curricula that are being used, so that there's shared language across the policies, shared language with the curricula, shared language that students are learning, that staff are using, that then when students see this, when teachers see it, when others see it, it really resonates with language that we're using across the district, across these different settings. So just wondering if that might be a way to help inform some of that language, to bring that alignment in.
Good, Sarah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think we should also be careful that we don't make it so specific to the curriculum we're using now that the policy, as we change curricula, becomes an issue. So.
Any other thoughts on these policies? The only thing I say about it is that you have a little bit of concern about how much I hear from students that nothing happens when they're being bullied. And that's like a lived reality of students. And I don't know what that something can be, as long as it's something where it's more students feel heard. And so I just wanted to mention that too when we're developing these ones. Okay. Last item on the agenda is board member comments. Does anybody have comments? I don't see any. Oh, Sarah. And yeah.
Yeah, I just had a few things come up during the meeting. One was the comment that the youth truth survey takes 45 minutes to an hour to complete. I don't do a good job filling out a survey that takes 45 minutes to an hour to complete. And I've heard from students before that they kind of rush through this and don't do a serious job completing it. And yet we use this data very commonly in reporting on our district. And so that just raised some red flags to me, that if this is such a long survey that students aren't doing a good job answering it, we're relying on data that's not real. Yeah, so I have another comment too.
So keep in mind, we started using Youth Truth when we did some work between boards, and Medford had been using it, and so we looked at it at that time. There were a couple reasons we chose it. One was because at that point in time, it allowed students to share more than two identities or two genders, and we also knew that we would get the information back more quickly, so it was more dynamic. When the state has a survey that we have to do, and that happens in the spring, and we don't get the results till late fall, when kids aren't even with the same teachers, sort of like SBAC. And so while it isn't perfect, I'm not sure of another tool that is. One of the things that we have done is, based on our board goals, we've added some modules. So there's a module that adds some questions related to equity and inclusion. And so we've, around real world learning, there's some questions we've asked because we've tried to get to more data. One of the things we're working on right now is looking at the 4 board goals and how we're monitoring our progress on those goals. And so that's a conversation we've been having with our executive team or leadership team recently. I would encourage us to hold on to it for now, and at the same time, we're working to provide better data as we go through the school year, because in a lot of ways it's a summative evaluation too, right? It happens once a year, and it is comprehensive, and at the same time that creates some limitations. So I don't have a better answer right now than that, but that is a conversation we've been having and working on.
And then my other question, and actually this might be better for the budget committee, is the question about the percentage of district level cuts that are people who are actually in schools working with students. Because when we got that information, it's sort of presented as this is district level cuts, this is school level cuts, this is other stuff. And it feels like those district level cuts, you are really officially categorized under district level cuts, but are impacting schools directly. So just a better sort of breakout of where those cuts are happening and whether those cuts are people who don't directly interact with students or people who do have an impact on students in their day-to-day experience in school.
Sure. And so, it wasn't, that second bucket wasn't district, it was departments, because all the people in those departments are overseen by somebody who is a coordinator or director. And so that's how those 3 things were broken up, and I can understand the confusion in that. So Lauren has been working on how do we account for FTE, and so we put back the folks that are primarily in schools into the school level data. And so and again, we're still working through some of the nuances of it, but it's closer to 7% at school level in terms of FTE, and about almost 14% at the district level. So it's almost a double percentage of cuts at the district level of positions that are primarily away from students compared to the cuts at the school level. So again, this is data she's been working on the last couple of days. We're still trying to refine it, but as of now, I can tell you that we have made significant cuts at the district office for positions that do not, that support schools, but are not primarily in schools every day. Thanks for the question.
Comment, I'm taking really, I wouldn't say fun, but very informative free class from the National Association of Family Treatment Courts. And I went to their recent seminar on the importance of early intervention for substance abuse prevention, and that best practices are now much, much younger with different kinds of information than previously thought. So I'm wondering if there's a way sometime to get information on how substance abuse prevention is being taught in our social emotional learning, how early we're teaching that, how that information is being imparted to the families, and like the question I asked when we were at Staldelin, what is the information about Narcan, and is that education being imparted as a part of any of our learning to the students?
That is part of the new health OAR that came out and is something that we have to report to Division 22. So we have a requirement in Division 22 about drug prevention, and they've expanded that and added information about fentanyl and the use of Narcan. So those are going to be lessons. I was just talking to Nikki about this, that we have specific lessons that we have to do grades 6 through 12. So we'll be doing that in the fall.
Is there a way to also get information on how and if information about substance use and abuse is being brought into the elementary schools in age-appropriate ways?
The health curriculum, I'm looking at Amy, the health curriculum talks about a lot of that as far as knowing who you are, what your body, what is good for your body. I'm trying to think of it in elementary terms, but yeah, that is part of the health curriculum in the elementary.
So I know there's a lot on everybody's plate right now, but I would really like to see in the future, just like at least presentation information about that specific set of information with the opioid epidemic hitting Corvallis harder and harder every year.
You know, our nurses have taken a huge role in that. We have Narcan boxes in every building. We have Narcan in the emergency boxes where the AEDs are, but also additional boxes. And they have been they've been advocating hard for that. And it's been, we find it to be pretty successful. We have a whole routine about making sure the Narcan's not expired. People check those boxes every month. Like, it's a part of what we do.
Are we providing Narcan education to the students?
That is part of the new OER that we're going to be working through, yeah.
That's something I'm really interested in. Thank
That's what you're interested in.
Tammy?
Thank you. Yeah, board members, you may have received an email from Kim about the city government corner for next year, so I just want to reiterate that invitation from the city. And earlier last year, around September, I did accept the invitation, so I want to share with you that on May 18th, Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., the city is going to have a government comment corner, and I'll be there in my individual school board member capacity there to engage with the community, receive questions, and share updates. It is a program that the city councilors have been doing across the years, and they wanted to expand it. In September, initially it was scheduled for March, then they rescheduled it for May. So if you get any questions about that opportunity, feel free to answer them or share it with other people. And if you're interested, you can sign up for future dates as well. And just want to thank the city for including us in this conversation.
Thanks. Did you have something, Vimpa?
First of all, thank you so much. This year has been great, just to start off with that. But just to kind of end off this meeting, I wanted to bring to your attention Chesterton Academy of St. Andrew. So I don't know if a lot of you have heard this name, but it is a brand new private Catholic high school starting in the fall of 2024 in Corvallis, Oregon. And while, of course, it is Catholic-led and it's connected with St. Mary's, and it is meant to increase quote-unquote classical education, as said by them. One of their biggest selling points right now is that they will be continuing AP Calculus BC. Again, as stated, for some reason, our community seems to really love AP Calculus BC, seems to have really be like engaged by it for some reason, so much to the extent that the creation of a private school actually came from outside the church itself. So it has come by community, it's come from community members, and I know several students who are at the middle school level now who will be attending, who are not Catholic, who are non-religiously affiliated, just for the reason of being able to get some class, AP Calculus BC, and quote unquote like rigor and the kind of things that they want. So my question to you is that, like, how do you foresee enrollment? How do you foresee enrollment changing due to the creation of a new Catholic, a new private high school, regardless of its affiliation? Also to note that its tuition is less than both Ashbrook and Santiam Christian right now. And how do you foresee, I think it's a 17% constant that private schools have always taken, that changing, as well as how future adoptions of curriculums and policies will be affected by this?
So I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't say how many kids would end up going to that school. My understanding from folks I've spoken to who attend there say that it's probably a very small group of students that they expect to have, and kids who are ready for Calc BC and Corvallis School District can still take it. So to me, I think it's more of a choice around religion than it is anything else. I think we have a rigorous curriculum for kids. Kids go off to do incredible things from our school district, and I don't see that changing. So perhaps it will become a larger school in the future, but yeah, it's April, and now they're starting to get ready to start for the fall. Sounds like it's going to be a pretty big challenge for them to be able to pull that off in that amount of time. I don't think charter schools could pull it off in that amount of time. So I think it's going to be a challenge for them. So that's my opinion.
I'd also just like to say that we're doing something right. We had 60 applicants for non-resident transfers into our school district, and we were able to place all of them. So people do still see, I know someone said something about what is the story of Corvallis, and I think the story of Corvallis is it's still a great place to bring your kids.
Any other comments? Therese?
In response to some of the conversation that's taking place around math, I do think, and Lou alluded to this or stated this earlier in the math conversation, it is really important for us to remember that one of the most important pieces of any of our curriculum that is focusing on advanced level classes is how will it articulate to the colleges and university system, and what are we making accessible to students. And so the major transfer map processes are governed by Oregon Department of Education. And while school districts can, of course, choose whatever they want, the best interest of the students is to make sure that the curriculum that we are offering them can land them in those classes as those universities are expecting to receive them. And so when we're looking at the course titles that we are using in our high school system and what those are mapping over to at the university system, what I care about as a college professor, what I care about as a parent is that my child can align what they are learning with the course numbers that are used in their college catalog when they need to go to an overburdened system that is not going to give them the kind of advising that they probably need, and they can figure out what class to take. And so there is something to be said for making sure that we know what our classes are teaching in comparison to what they're going to be expected to take later. And I hope our community doesn't get too hung up on which letters of the alphabet are following the course name, and they're focusing more on, is this content preparing our kids to transition into the college level course that is supposed to come after what they are getting? Because I promise you, that is what your students' college math professor, that is what they care about.
Well said, Therese. And having a course name something doesn't make it an equivalent to those classes. As you're saying, that's governed through that partnership with higher ed and K-12 systems. And that's an important distinction that I hope that community members understand, that just because something is called something doesn't mean it will translate in the same way in the direction that a lot of folk are hoping in the higher ed system. Thank you for pointing that out. I wasn't going to say anything about the maths because I already did, but here I am. Anybody else? Shauna?
I just wanted to, I know folks have left from public comment already tonight, but just wanted to thank all the folks who came and offered testimony tonight to really bring and elevate the importance of not just libraries, but librarians in the lives of students, in their learning, in their well-being, and creating those safe spaces, and the consistency of being people who are in students' lives throughout their schooling, as well as educators who came and spoke about music and the arts more broadly, and the important role that plays in students' learning, as well as also their well-being. And one of the things I heard in addition to just how important those programs are in our district and have been always, and the community backing for this to continue to be an important part of education here, is an ask for engagement and transparency and clarity in process. And I really appreciated the community came forward to voice their needs with that. I think as budget decisions are made and hard decisions continue to have to be made, really reflecting on what are the processes that are happening, how can that become more transparent, how can it be done in a way that continues to engage more deeply those who work most closely with students as decision makers, as well as students themselves. So just an urging to us and as a district to really think about listening to what we've heard and thinking about how should that impact our process, not only the process that's already happened, but how the process goes forward.
Shauna, any other comments? Okay. I did have two comments. One is I wanted to say thank you for the community members who I had delayed email responses to. I wanted to publicly say thank you for your patience. I had some technical issues and also had a death in the family, and so I was behind and wanted to commit to asking Shauna and Therese for help if that happens again, especially right now as we continue to get more and more emails. So just wanted to thank my colleagues on the board as well for the large amount of replies you all got recently at one time. And to the community, again, thank you for your patience and understanding. And then my other one is similar to what Shauna said, to say thank you to the community that came. I know hardly anybody's probably watching at this point because this is the longest meeting we've had in a long time. And just wanted to say again, thank you to the community for showing up in the way that you did and for your emails that you're sending in. Again, it's Corvallis, or board@corvallis.k12.or.us. Comes to all of us, so you don't have to type all our names individually. So just wanted to remind you all of that. And also, I forgot to mention earlier, but the recording for the budget training is online on the district's YouTube channel. So if you wanted to understand the budget process a little bit more, to please take a look at that as you tune in for our continued budget conversations that are coming up. We don't have another board meeting until next month because the rest of them are budget meetings. So if you wanted to engage with us, the best way to do that is to get a hold of one of us or many of us. We just can't all be there at the same time because that violates public meeting laws. And then also to feel free to email us. And with that, that was all my comments, I think. And thank you to the staff who are still here. I know it's really late and you all are very tired too, probably, and for all your work that you're doing, in addition to the staff that are not here right now. So with that, our meeting is adjourned at 10:11 p.m. My gosh, man.